I'm David Annandale, and you're listening to Masters of the Forge.
Welcome to episode 4 of the Masters of the Forge. My name is Camille, and with me tonight are Snorri.
Yeah, hello.
And Adam.
Hola.
Both very enthusiastic tonight. This episode will feature a whole lot of 40k covered ops goodness, still written for 6th edition, by the way. So there might be some minor changes to the PDF version we are offering for download in wake of this episode. If we find that there's anything glaringly wrong with our stuff as soon as we have checked out the 7th edition rule set.
Yeah, well, we've only had a cursory glance at 7th edition, so obviously this episode will be full of complaining and whining about 7th edition. I hope you're all prepared for that.
Actually, it won't, but we still hope you're prepared.
There's probably room for some ranting, but hey, it's all based on rumors. That's how internet works, right?
Definitely, yeah. And actually, I could save myself introducing the in the hobby segment now. Let's just delve straight into it because I think we have a lot of things to talk about. Like especially Snorri, who took a great road trip, or rather, channel trip, I think.
Yeah, well, I didn't. It was definitely not a road trip because I flew over there. But I just got back from
Sky trip. Cool.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Dude,
I astrally projected over. Yeah, but anyways, I took a trip over to London to visit Jason and the other guys at the Overlords, and that was a great trip. Apart from the tiny little detail about I arrived at Gatwick Airport and my luggage didn't.
The Death Guard showed up late?
Yeah.
That figures.
They're so slow.
Exactly. So, luckily, my suitcase was brought over to Jason's place during the evening sometime, but I had to play with the club army and my own Heldrake, because that's the only thing I had as carry-on luggage. So, that was a bit sad. But I got to try out a few new things, because I had to borrow a couple of rhinos, so that kind of plugged one of the holes in my army. And, just did something different for once, and it worked out. It gave me some inspiration.
That's great. I think that's why a lot of people sometimes do the army trade. They'll once the opponent will play their friend's army, and the other person will play that person's army.
Yeah, I heard about a very cool approach in that direction recently. Like, you have a doubles tournament where you play with a partner, but you play with your partner's stuff and vice versa. That's sort of very amusing.
It's a great way to actually get people to stop complaining about, your army is so overpowered. Because, yes, it might be overpowered when you know how to play it, but if you switch armies, then you realize that you don't just roll the dice and win.
Yeah, it's not an auto-win button.
Exactly. So you actually realize that there's a lot of thought that goes into making this army good.
Wait, you're talking about appreciating others? I don't know. I don't think the hobby can handle that.
Jeez, yeah.
What else did you do over there? Anything else?
Let's see. Pubs, booze, Godzilla. I did.
Gojira!
I got to see Godzilla. And it's like, meh, it's an okay movie. It's not great. But hey, it's a Godzilla movie, so it's never going to be great. It's going to be okay.
As long as you're still calling it a Godzilla movie, I think I'm happy.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. I definitely will. But that's like a positive indicator if you admit that it's a Godzilla movie at all, because that cannot be said about the American version.
Well, it's something we can talk about on that other podcast that we're doing. But
the Godzilla podcast?
Yeah, so let's continue to do some 40k. Let's see, I played 5 or 6 games in 2 days, which is like a record because usually I play just like 1 or 2 games every other week. So having played 5 or 6 games in 2 days, it was pretty surprised I actually had the stamina to do it, because playing one game, I'm usually kind of tired. It's like, yeah, I can pass on the next one. So it's like, suddenly I'm playing all these people. But
yeah, you get the decision fatigue that 11th Company was talking about. Your brain literally requires more energy than pretty much any other part of your body. And when you overuse it, it actually does physically drain you.
Yeah, but I had some fun games because I had my first game against Eldar. I was playing James Brown over there, and I actually won the game. I think we called it at the end of 4th turn, and I had not quite tabled him, but I almost had tabled him. And the most awesome move in that game was when I charged, like, I think it was 7 Plague Marines into his... I think it was his Wraith Lord, and the Wraith Lord tried to do some damage, and the rest of it was just like, yeah, Plague Knife to the shins, and it died.
Weren't you saying Wraith Knife on Facebook?
The
big one or the smaller one?
It was a Wraith something. I think it was a Wraith Knight, but I'm playing the success. But it was his warlord, and he realized that, yeah, there's not really much point to play.
Was it as tall as a newborn baby?
I think it was about the size of a 5-year-old.
Okay, yeah, then it was a Wraith Knight. Thank you very much for clarifying.
Yeah.
So wait a minute, this guy's name was James Brown? Does he, at the end of the game, when you roll to end the game, does he say, "Can I count it off"?
Not really, but we did have.
Coming at you.
We did joke a little bit about his name, but yeah.
Good impression, Adam, by the way. Good impression. I'm really impressed.
Thank you. Well, let's be honest. If you don't listen to him at all,
say it in a James Brown voice.
I don't. You wrong. You're just wrong. I don't care how many listeners that we continue to turn away by offering our opinion, but if you don't like James Brown, turn it off.
Also,
turn
Firefly
off the podcast and
friggin'
Firefly.
rocks.
Yeah. All right. Anything else, Snorri?
Yeah, I picked up Cromlech, or is it Rotting Butcher, as another demon prince for my army.
Wow, that guy sounds gross.
Yeah, you sent out the pictures, didn't you?
Yeah, he is beautiful. You can just go to cromlech.eu and look at the miniature, or like into the shop, look at the miniatures section.
Cromlech are the guys doing all the cool orcs, aren't they?
Yeah, every time I go to that shop, I want to start a greenskin army.
Yeah,
you should.
Those orcs that they make, they're just fantastic. They're just so hilarious. It's awesome.
Oh, I love their mega armor, besides the hilarious stuff, even.
Yeah, there are great coats, and what was the other one? They're,
Soviet grots or something like that?
Soviet goblins. Those are awesome. But
yeah,
anyways,
and you have like flyboys and everything. Just go there and have a look, and it's awesome.
Yeah, and while I was at Dark Sphere picking up this model, I picked up about 2,500 points of Chaos. Space Marines, of course. And, I can't really build a vanilla Space Marine army when it comes to my Death Guard. I have to put some Forge World into it, so I ordered, enough Death Guard stuff for 40 Plague Marines, 20 Terminators, some Rhino doors, some Land Raider doors.
All right, Carl, shut up.
Yeah, exactly. It's like acquisitions.
How many cards are those actually?
I think I spent, 3 or 4 Carls on this. Yeah, exactly. I spent way too much.
I just sent them to you, and you already spent half of them?
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right. Thanks for the Carl coins there,
Don't
Adam.
Those heavily cut into your social security Carls?
So yeah, I spent way too much money on that trip, but
awesome.
It was worth it because, sorry Games Workshop Oslo, Norwegian retail prices are kind of insane. So when you have English Games Workshop prices minus the 20% at that certain store that I'm not going to plug anymore because, well, this isn't the podcast that should advertise too much, then yeah, it's worth it. I did save quite a bundle on this.
Yeah, one might say that the name of the store sounds very similar to another word or another phrase, something gaming. I don't know.
I don't even know what you're talking about. Yeah, sounds like you had fun, buddy.
It sounds like you know what though. You love your Death Guard, so I'd say that those purchases are definitely justified. Like I think you're on your way to having a fully fledged, like full army because your progress has been so quick and you could tell you love it. So I say just if you're going to go that far, if you're going to already have like 4 times as many painted models as you had in your previous armies in this one army, you might as well keep going and see what you can make out of it.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that I did purchase wasn't just purchase for the sake of purchase. It was to fill a lot of holes I have in my army because I don't have high-powered, long-range firepower. I don't have rhinos to transport my Plague Marines into combat. And I needed that desperately. And now I do have that. I have some Terminators that I can put in. The only thing I'm missing right now, I think, is a couple of obliterators, but I can get that later. That's like the only thing I need to fill out my army so I can take anything to fit any kind of situation.
Yeah, I think Death Guard, at least the Plague Marines, above any others, don't care about whether or not you blow up the Rhino. Another unit might be very sad when you blow up the Rhino, and then they have to wait another turn for assault, and by the time they're actually like assaulting, there's 2 guys left. But the Death Guard are just happy to get the extra movement, and when the vehicle explodes, they don't die, and then when they get shot at, they don't die. You know?
Yeah, something like that.
Come on, Adam, you only appreciate Death Guard that much because they're green too.
I hate those jerks. One time I shot 3 Doka Jets at one squad. The worst part is he was down to 1 guy sitting on an objective, and I shot an entire Doka Jet at it, did like 4 wounds, and he saved all of them.
Yep.
Wow.
I hate Death Guard.
They're tough bastards.
Definitely.
So yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm going to Oslo again tomorrow to play more games, and we're probably going to have our first 7th edition game there. And that's going to be interesting because I ordered the 7th edition stuff, and it hasn't arrived yet. Because
whoa! You ordered the 7th edition stuff. All right, let's take this. This is a variable that you're omitting the details of. But by 7th edition stuff, what do you mean, Snorri?
It's the rule book, the picture book, and the fluff book, plus some cards and some order cards.
Just admit that you bought the Monitorum edition.
With numbers on them. Yeah, exactly. I was trying not to sound like a total jerk here.
But instead
you enumerated everything that comes in the box.
I was trying to delay the whole box thing so you can just talk in my mouth and just blab about it.
That's in a way that sounds even more jerkish. I'm sorry.
The last thing, I guess, that is worth mentioning in this overly long segment about me talking about stuff I've done is that I had a long and nice talk with Steve about his upcoming campaign in it's like a small planetary system that he wants other groups to play in and exchange battle reports and everything, so we can write up as like a shared history for this small system.
The Takeshi system.
That's Inquisitor Steve from the Overlords, maybe.
Yeah, and I definitely recommend the Overlords YouTube channel. It is a lot of fun. There's a lot of battle reports and a lot of nice chatting. And Steve's Islith segment is really cool. You get to see his progress and get ideas for your own narrative hobbying. And what's funny is I used to think that Islith was where he lives in England because it sounds like it, right? Doesn't it sound like a region
sounds like
London?
Innsmouth, kinda, but that's America.
I live in Islith.
That must be the equivalent to Lovecraft Country in Britain.
Yeah. One thing that he told me, which really warmed my heart, was that he said he only has about 90 minutes a week for hobby. And he always uses that time to listen to podcasts while he's doing his stuff. And he told me that one of the few podcasts that he makes time to listen to is our podcast. So
That's so
that's
sweet.
nice.
Yeah.
That's cool. I really hope that a lot of people are enjoying it, and it seems like they are. We have some nice numbers. I'm sure it doesn't stack up to all the other podcasts, but for episode 3, I don't think we're doing too bad. So I hope the listeners can maybe drop us a line and tell us what we're doing right, and maybe also we don't mind you giving us criticism too, because we just want to make this thing even better.
Yeah.
Sure, definitely.
As long as the criticism is constructive, we love to get that. But if it's just like whining for the sake of whining, then it's like, in one ear, out the other,
well, at least
into
make
the
it
trash
creative,
can.
right? If you're going to whine for the sake of whining, at least make it creative to give us a chuckle.
Yeah, exactly. Now, before the first criticism we're going to get for this episode will be overlong in the hobby segment, let's turn our attention to Adam. What have you been doing?
Oh, you turned to the wrong person for that concern, sir.
How are those
Episode
Titans
4,
going?
I'm gonna have to pay a little extra for Libsyn service this month because episode 4 is kind of long too, to be honest. So
All
here
right.
we go.
Have you finished your nights?
Huh?
Have you finished your nights?
Oh, I was hoping that you'd say something about that because last episode you had to eat crow. This episode, no crow eating. I did not touch them this week.
All right, moving on to me.
No, here's the problem, Camille.
All right, tell me all about your problems.
I took on another commission.
You are the
Adam.
worst.
Adam.
You are the worst.
Haven't we talked about this?
But I finished it. 3 wave serpents.
Okay.
Three wave serpents, yellow and blue. I airbrushed the yellow on, and I didn't get enough coverage, so it took me way longer than it should have. But I am happy with the results, and I'm not sure what the deal is with post. I can't go into too much detail. I'm doing it for someone, and I maybe I'll go into more detail later because I haven't really spoken to them about.
Just tell us if it's Iandon or Alitok, and we're going to be happy.
Iandon.
All right.
So I did that. That's taken up a lot of my time, but I'm thinking about doing more commissions as time goes on, and here's why that's not a bad idea. Wendy understands that it will bring in money, and we'll be able to start paying off debts and stuff that we have. So in a reasonable amount of time, too. So she's taken on some household duties that I've been taking care of. I usually do cooking and dishes and a few other things. So she's kind of taken on a lot of my household duties, which has freed me up for painting and whatnot. So this weekend, I'm going to go camping on Sunday, and I'm going to bring the Titans with me and do some work on the Titans this weekend.
While you're camping? Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's nice. It's not like painting, which is a pain in the neck. At least assembly, you can kind of sit there and
Sure.
you don't really have to worry about
it's just way more
humidity it's pretty nice. And I usually just sit there anyways, so I'll just sit there and
You have an amazing wife, by the way. Did I already point this out?
Yeah, she's like the greatest woman who ever lived, and I love her so much. I'm really lucky. I'm like this. Like sometimes, when you get kind of depressed or about something, and you're like, my job is laborious. My job sucks. But you got to step back and look at things sometimes and go, wait a minute. I have pretty much everything I could possibly want. What am I complaining about? And she makes it all possible. So, anyways, I'd like to talk about one of the campaign games we played in the past 2 weeks. We've had some fun games. The Chaos player actually did manage to push the rest of the Imperials off of the polar region. So that whole southern continent now belongs to Chaos of the main planet, or the main moon Flera. But then this week, my buddy Mike with his Ultramarines rolled off against James, who's the Tzeentch player, and Mike won the roll-off to be the attacker. So Mike chose an island. There's an island continent in the northern region, which has a mountainous interior, so it's like a big volcanic kind of island with high terrain in the center. The Chaos Warlord had chosen that central territory on that island as a staging ground to attack the Imperials, which surround that section, which had chosen the areas surrounding that location. So Mike said, I'll just attack that, and we'll try to push them off the island continent. So I thought, here's a good opportunity for a narrative mission. They asked, do you have any missions? And I really didn't have any Masters of the Forge missions to give them. But I still wanted it to be a fun game. So I decided to take a box, cover it with one of the table covers, and call that, and put a bunch of our hills around it, cover it with trees and stuff, and call that a mountain. And I also we have this arcane portal terrain. It's basically a weird, like, swirling energy portal, and I put that right next to the mountain. And also put some mining equipment. We have some of the old armor cast pipes and mining equipment, and we put that around it. So the terrain was basically a mine in the mountains, which had developed a chaos portal to the warp inside it. So it has a damned, I guess, mine that spits out demons. So the special rules for the mission that I came up with on the fly were that the Chaos player had to start his demons in reserve, and they are kind of disembarked from the portal, but without any real implications. Like the Imperial player can't just cover it and to stop the demons from coming out. His supposed to be kind of friendly that way. But when he loses his demons, he gets a whole nother unit back. He only had like 2 units of pink horrors, so it really wasn't that big a deal. The Chaos player would deploy first in all but 2 quadrants of the 4-foot by 8-foot board, and then after that, the Space Marine player was allowed to infiltrate and then take first turn. So it's basically the Ultramarines assaulting this staging ground of demon summoning and warp infiltrating. So I thought that would be a cool. I just kind of came up with it. So for that reason, I wanted to build in a way to swing things in one direction or the other in case my on-the-fly rules hurt one of the players more than the other. And I think this is a good lesson for anybody who's doing narrative campaigns where you're just coming up with crap on the fly. This kind of I'd hate to say wisdom for want of being arrogant, but I guess it is. This little piece of wisdom comes from years of GMing and understanding that sometimes fairness and balance are not the same thing. Even if you think your mission is balanced, doesn't mean it's fair to all the players. So, and everybody wants to have a good time, right? So I set it up so that they would roll the turn every turn. So at the end of the game turn, they would roll a die, and if it was equal to or less than the game turn, something special would happen. I had to leave to go home before the game was over, so I kind of whispered.
Oh, that's a pity.
Yeah, I kind of whispered to one of the other players who's a kind of an accomplice in all this, and I told him, all right. So if it looks like the Chaos player is getting their butt whooped, then they managed to summon a not a bloodthirster. They managed to summon a greater demon of Tzeentch out of the portal without upgrades.
Wow. Okay.
If it looks like the Imperial player is getting his butt whooped, then one of the tactical Marines is actually Tigurius in disguise.
Ooh.
Yeah, he's come to seal up the rift. So yeah, the mission was just holding that rift. That was the only objective, is the rift. So if the Imperials were holding the rift by the end of the game, it means that they set up some kind of psychic bomb, closing the rift.
They set him up the bomb?
They would set them up the bomb, and their base would belong to them or whatever.
I get it.
But if it looked like neither were in the right, I just gave him leave to give them both a little something, like a sergeant or something, like a herald, or something like that.
Yep.
But on turn 3, since this was a place of chaos and a warp, almost a burgeoning warp storm itself, I decided to turn on the warp storm table, even though the chaos player, his primary is Chaos Space Marines. I said, we're starting up the warp storm table, and it happens on every turn. So I thought that was fun that it ended up the Chaos player never got to kill Tigerius, and they both contested ended the game fighting in front of the portal, so the portal wasn't closed, and the Imperium had to fall back from that battle because the warp storm was getting too powerful. But I think it was a fun game. The guys said they had fun, and I think we'll see what comes up next. I think the Imperium is still going to keep on trying to slam that region and take it from them, because I have a feeling it's going to be a source of a lot of pain for them in the future.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. What else? I don't think I have too much else. We've been working on the Gargant for our Apocalypse game next weekend. We'll share that. I'm going to go up there on Monday, on Memorial Day, and work on it. Hopefully almost finish it. And again, if anybody wants to play, it's $15. It's going to be over the course of 2 days with prizes at grimfogames.com.
Awesome.
One last middle thing. Tournament. I'm going to a tournament today. First tournament I've been to since Adepticon, so it'll be nice. Bring in the Star Eagles, 7 drop pods, and 3 squads of Legion of the Damned Counts As, which are my Kavuli Marines. On my first company, so we'll see how that goes. I'm not bringing any flyers this time. So.
And in the near future, listeners of the Masters of Forge are gonna learn a lot more about your Star Eagles and the Kavuli and all the other guys, right?
Yep.
Just as a little silent teaser here, don't go too much into it.
Yep. We're gonna be talking about. It'll give me an opportunity to look at the 7th edition rules too and update it. Do a little bit of an update to it before we do that episode. So yeah,
Good
that's
stuff.
it for me, man. I'm spent.
One more thing people might care about real quick. When are you getting your 7th edition books?
I don't know, dude. If I win the tournament today, I'm getting them today. If I don't, I'm not sure, because
Spending.
I don't want to be negative on our podcast, but I don't want to buy another doorstop. I know that it comes split up and you have a smaller book than before, but I don't want a hardcover. I just don't. I just don't want it.
You might. Is it just about the format, or is it about the pricing and the fact that there's no mini rule book?
If it were just the rule book for $45 or $50, I would have bought it.
Yeah, but you might want to check out eBay in the next few days, or rather in the next 2 weeks, 2 weeks, and see if somebody's selling the rule book separately from the other 2 books, and maybe that'll even hit right into the pricing range you just.
Maybe it's also partially I know that one man isn't going to change GW's mind about anything, but I kind of feel like I want to
make a point.
Yeah, if they come out with just the rule book, and I want to buy it so I can prove to them, if you release that, someone will buy it. So I don't know if this is kind of the mindset of other folks in the world, but here that's kind of you make a mess. You send someone a message by making your purchases. Kind of like a capitalist thing.
So basically, what you're looking for is the the 7th edition equivalent of that small 6th edition book called The Rules.
Yeah, and I have I bought the digital version of that. Like, I'm not the kind of person. I am definitely the kind of person that says if you're going to use something, buy it. So like, I do have downloads of a bunch of stuff that I don't really use, that I just reference once in a while. But if I legitimately use it, I buy it. I bought the digital rules. I bought the digital Legion of the Damned book. I bought the digital Space Marines book. I buy everything I use, and I think that's important. I think it's important to reward companies for producing things that you want to use.
Definitely.
At the same time,
I'm
not
gotta
going
make
to
this
reward them for producing things I don't want to use.
Exactly. All right. So I
so
think
that's all I have to say about that. I hope that had more of a positive spin than some other people give it.
Yeah, and it's also not like you're gonna boycott 7th edition and not play the rules and everything. So
not at all.
no,
if it
people
turns
should
out
be
they
at peace.
never release the rules, I'll eventually buy it grudgingly.
All right. So, as far as I am concerned, I'm sort of in the same boat with 7th edition as Snorri, as in we're both getting it this Wednesday, as far as I can tell. And in my case, that's a bit of a slip up because I just ordered a bit late, and I'm sort of insisting on getting the English edition because it just makes sense. So, I could get like the German edition like today, anytime, just a quick trip to the game store, which
But
I'm in a fortunate
you don't want the
spot
book
in.
that talks about cybots.
Exactly, pretty much.
Can I just say something really quick? I am really impressed with the command you guys have of the English language. I know that Snorri, you get frustrated at sometimes at your stumbling, but I think you guys do a really good job of being fluent in English, and I am always impressed by anyone who can. I mean, I know you're taught it as a child and you grow up with it, but to be perfectly honest, I am legitimately impressed at you guys' command of the English language, and I'm sure the game helps with that, doesn't it?
Oh yeah, it definitely does, and thank you very much. And, I gotta admit, the thing that most likely helped it the most was the internet, and I guess with Snorri it was similar.
No, what helped me speak English was Sky Channel and what's that guy's name? Pat Sharp? That's
Right.
pretty much where I learned half my English.
Yeah, I learned half my English on the internet, and I think you can tell by the way that I'm more about, talking American than I'm talking English. I think the Overlord's crew would agree. But yeah, there's that. So, that about 7. Getting the English edition makes sense for the podcast. Makes sense because my best gaming buddy is also playing English since 6th edition. And, with supplements and stuff partly only being released in non-localized, just English versions, that makes sense too. And that's why I have to wait until Wednesday to get my rule set. Now, as for hobby progress and games played, somebody's gonna draw the short straw here. So I don't have as much to say as Adam and Snorri do, but I think it's fair because this has gone on for long enough. So I've played a game last week Sunday against my best buddy Ollie, and I have to admit that we didn't have much time to put much context or narrative thought into it. But what we did was to actually Christian his Tyranids in a 1,500 points game, and considering the fact that that Ollie is an extremely busy guy in terms of job, he put up an impressive Tyranid horde this year. He only started collecting and painting his High Fleet Kraken force actually this year, and I think of his 1,500 points, he's got roughly half painted, and that's a very impressive effort. Good quality too. Great. You can see the pics on Facebook, by the way. Uploaded it I think Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, you took some good pictures. I have to remember. I've been trying to remember to take at model level pictures instead of wide angle pictures, which is what you did. You got down at the model level and took some kind of narrative looking pictures, which was really cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I might do some edits on those actually in the future, like, some really cool stuff like, flying projectiles, some fog, and just cutting out the background, maybe cutting out the bases. I don't know. If I have the time, I would like to do some kind of, Forge World like Photoshop edited pics, but that's crazy future talk. At the moment, first thing I should actually do is to figure out my phone, because those are suboptimal. But it's also sort of harsh, like taking photos at the place we play, which will be Ollie's apartment, because he painted his Realm of Battle board mostly black gray. And wherever he didn't put down any sand, and those are quite a few spots, it's sort of shiny reflective and very dark, and he has like harsh direct lighting on top of the table, which is real good if you're playing like non-daytime, and it's absolutely okay for playing there, but it's I think it takes some figuring out how to do proper photos on it, because you've got a half matte, half reflective surface and harsh lighting above, and photos aren't coming out as I would like them, and I'm no photographer, and I don't even have a proper camera, but I'm working with my phone here, as I said before, so I'm gonna figure this out, but I'm not gonna go into the details of the game now, because there's really not too much narrative to talk about yet. We're working on that, I promise, pinky promise.
Well, you know what? Sometimes you gotta just let the narrative unfold on the table for you.
Yeah, definitely. I do have ideas. I just, I need to put them into coherent shape, and the game definitely helped with that. I know what you mean. I have actually suffered a quite harsh defeat in Kill the Alien mission. I think it was in the end it was like 9 victory points for him, 4 for me, and if we would have actually finished like 1 or 2 more turns, and if I didn't have to leave for the bus, it would have turned into something like 12-3. So to summarize, what actually broke my army would be Flyrand with dual twin-link Devourers. That was, wow. He just flew around and killed all kinds of things with it, and I just didn't adequately react to all of his big beasts. Like, I've spread around my efforts to actually wound them a little far. I got a little optimistic in my calculations, so in the end he had like a dead Turvingan, a dead Morlock, sorry, and a wounded Turvingan, and a heavily wounded Carnifex, and a heavily wounded Flyrand, but not enough stuff was dead. And that's a good lesson for future games against Tyranids. And on the other hand, I don't feel that bad, because seeing that it was like my first actual game of 40k this year, and the first game of my best buddy here with his Tyranids, I just decided to bring like everything new I have painted and built the list around that, and not like build a legit Tyranid killer list, but rather more like a fun list, a show-off list of things I've painted in the last few months, and that worked out nicely. We had a great time. So. Yeah, that was pretty much it. We'll be playing again in something like 1 or 2 weeks, I think, or 2 weeks rather, in that sense. As we're recording the next episode next week.
Sweet, dude.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. Hobby-wise, actually for that game, I finished up a Storm Talon gunship that you can see on those pics, but I'm gonna
it looks good, man. By the way, I like that.
Thank you very much. I'm gonna post some proper pictures of it in the near future. I think as soon as I've finished up my second, because those are actually like brothers in more than one sense. I'm gonna go into that deeper as soon as both of them finished, but there's sort of a background to them, and I'll delve into it when I've finished painting. So yeah.
Cool. So this episode, I love this episode, by the way. The episode the listeners are about to partake in. I think that this episode is awesome. It's about, what was the term we decided on?
40k covert ops in the end.
Yes, covert ops.
You can talk a moment.
No, we didn't call it covert ops. We called it something else.
You think so?
God
No,
damn
it was Covert Ops.
Okay, sorry. We changed it to Covert Ops. Didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so the first idea we had was actually like 40k Special Forces, but then we just went insane with different ideas of what to do, and in the end we had sort of a recurring theme of, let's say, infiltration, don't we?
Yeah.
So we stuck with Covert Ops, and you can find out what this is about in the upcoming on the tabletop section. We really hope you're going to enjoy this one as much as we enjoyed recording it.
Yep.
And writing it.
Yeah, that was the fun part. It was kind of like a unit show and tell, which is great. What's our next episode, guys?
Our next episode is actually going to be about Fall of Damnos by Nick Kime, which we're very much looking forward to.
Yeah, definitely.
So if you don't want us to spoil it, you have about 2 weeks to read it, or at least get started on it, before we start talking about it.
Yeah, it's a quick read.
Exactly.
And speaking of our listeners, this episode is going to be all about homebrew. There's nothing really. Well, actually, Adam, your commandos are based on the book Commandos, right?
They're based on them, but it is definitely a homebrew unit. Like,
Yeah.
the whole thing. Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah, like the fluff for mine is definitely very, very homebrew. Like, I made up the fluff for this. It doesn't actually come from any kind of actual book.
And it's amazing. We love it. Now,
the point I'm actually making here is that we did this so that we could show you just what can be done through complete homebrew. And if you guys out there have something homebrew that you would like us to have a look at, talk about on the air, or something like that, feel free to contact us on Facebook and talk a little bit about what it is, because we would love to have listener interaction on our podcast.
Yeah, definitely. We would love to hear about your homebrew units, talk about them, review them, talk about the lore behind them, and just in general, just get way more in touch with you people.
Yeah, definitely. Like, we're not like we were saying, we're not super experts here. So
no, we're just
there's nothing saying
enthusiasts.
Yeah, and just like everyone out there, we're enthusiasts for the game, and we want to play it in as many different ways as we can. So please do contact us with that, and your game and your game group advertisements too. Come on, we'd love to advertise for you. It's free.
Agreed. Now, I think this rounds us off nicely, so we hope you enjoyed us talking about James Brown and Firefly and Adam's wife. Make sure to tune in to Godzilla Radio episode 287. We're also producing, as it seems. And enjoy our On the Tabletop segment. Be right back.
Enjoy your burrito.
Hey, Masters of the Forge listeners. Do you want to start a Warhammer 40,000 club in your area? Or are you looking to expand your gaming group?
Do you want the people you attract to that group to be good quality individuals?
Do you want to advertise your YouTube channel?
Do you want to attract more subscribers to your hobby blog or online community?
Then what better way than to advertise on the Masters of the Forge podcast?
All we ask of you is that you email us at mastersoftheforge@gmail.com or message us on Facebook with the full text of your advertisement, including the region in which you live and any contact information people can use to get a hold of you.
We will have one of our many tech servitors read your advertisement on the air. We promise not to make fun of you.
Though we can't always predict the actions of our servitors. You really can't find good help these days.
No, you can't. Welcome back, listeners. Today's main topic is invisible threats of the 41st millennium. We're talking about those insipid little races or insipid little groups in 40k who work in the shadows and try to affect events without frontal assault.
Insipid, invisible infiltrators.
Yes.
Yeah, pretty much. So we're really happy to have the opportunity to do this kind of episode where we just cover a plethora of different kinds of Xenos stuff for 140k and offer you the lore and the rules to use them, to bring them to our tabletops alongside that. So, yay!
Yeah, we really have been doing a lot of power armor stuff lately, so it was really important that we start expanding our offerings and doing some more variety for you guys.
Yeah. Now, the original idea was actually to do covert ops, but as we started cracking on this, we're just like, I have this really cool idea, but it's not really covert ops kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then, well, Adam, you actually stuck to the original idea. Camille and I, we just went way off.
Yeah, Adam is the only one who actually stayed on topic for a change.
Yeah, and I think we had a lot of fun with this one, and we hope to use this format more in the future because it is fun and it does allow everyone to really put on their imagination caps and come up with something really fun, and it allows for all of us and the listeners and us included to learn a few things.
Yeah, it's like a fruit salad of 40k awesome.
And
That's right.
Adam, I didn't put on a creativity hat. I put on tinfoil.
You kind of did. We all kind of did, didn't we? So I wanted to make a quick note before we get into the thick of things for the listeners. Now, let's peel back the fourth wall a little bit. We're recording this episode before the drop of the new edition, the alleged new edition, and we're always recording ahead of time. We do this so that you, the listener, will never miss an episode. You'll never want for an episode when 2 weeks have passed. So if there's an illness in the family, God forbid, or if there is whatever reason we can't record, we can easily keep on our schedule. So having said that, sometimes the rules that we talk about on the show might be a little bit different than the rules in our supplements.
Especially in this particular case where we are rumored to get like either a real new edition or an update to 6th edition that like intervenes with the army organization and stuff, like mid or late May is the current rumor, I think. So that would be shortly before or during the release time frame for this very episode. So just bear with us in case this is a little bit outdated, and we're gonna make sure to update the downloadable PDF of the supplement accordingly. But the episode content might be a little bit outdated, but whatever we say about the lore and our thoughts behind the design will still apply, so we're confident that this will work out just nicely for you.
That's right, and let's be honest, like things probably won't change so much that the spirit behind what we're trying to do should still convey pretty nicely, and wherever possible, you know, I think it's a good policy to do points changes rather than actual straight up rules changes if something's more or less powerful or whatever, consider it, you know, in respect to the edition change.
So yeah, consider this one of our famous disclaimers. And
right. All right, hold on. Masters of the Forge LLC is not responsible for the rules writing whims of Games Workshop. We are not responsible for any confusion or brain tremors acquired in not being able to reconcile the differences in rules that we portray here on the show and our supplements. Thank you very much.
That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I laughed.
You
I cried.
Get started?
It changed my life.
Let's get started. So what do you guys want to talk about? There are a lot of different invisible threats that threaten the Imperium in Warhammer 40k. I guess one of the most popular ones is the Genestealer Cults, isn't it? Like, we could do an entire episode on that.
Oh, and we probably will. Let's be honest about that, because that's like prime supplemental material where you're just asking yourselves and face palming why GW, you know, with the great allies system they got now, and with the Tyranids' dire need for allies, haven't like jumped all over to earn some money. I just don't get it.
Well, I wonder, sorry, Snorri. I was just saying, are there any cults on a planet at the point that it gets invaded? Like, are there even any cults when that happens?
That was pretty much the old lore that, you know, the cults pretty much prepare habitable worlds for invasion that have like a civilization or a colony or a hive city or whatever going on. And they actually, at that point, they actually actively fought besides the invasion vanguard. That was sort of their role at that point. Throw the planetary defenses into utter confusion with a big uprising, and actually do fight alongside the Tyranid vanguard. So there's that.
Yeah, Camille, you have a hard-on for aliens.
Oh, I totally do have. How come you realize this right now? Did I drop something?
Is that a Genestealer in your pocket, or?
Okay, that was right. Okay, but he's right. I definitely game over, man. Game over.
So what else? The Tyranids are really masters of this. They have, not only do they have the cults, but they also have like weird parasitic organisms that are kind of almost orc-like when they spread throughout planets, right?
A bit of trivia here. Actually, at some point, squigs were a sort of Tyranid adopted by the orcs.
No kidding.
Did you know that?
I had no idea.
They were actually a Tyranid organism. And I gotta admit that besides that a little bit of like trivia, I don't know much about the connection. But you could actually have like swarms of squigs instead of nowadays what are called those little critters. Absorber swarms or something like that?
That sounds really interesting because it's just like orcs, right? It's just like orcs to look at an enemy and have an enemy invade, and the orcs go, you know what? We're going to loot that. Thanks. Thank you for the free food and pets.
Those little critters, they're really cute and they're spreading like real fast, and they are sort of tasty. So let's cultivate them.
And mean.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
okay, but your original question was actually something else, I think.
Yeah. I'm talking about the parasite of Mortrex, and like there's an old rule that I found in the old Tyranid Codex called the Sarge is acting strangely, where the model's head explodes and all kinds of ripper swarms come pouring out. That's rad.
Yeah, definitely. I can totally remember that scene from Star Trek The Next Generation.
All right, yeah. That was one of my favorite episodes when I was a kid. I was really angry that they never moved on with that storyline.
They totally should have, but, I guess it was a bit dark for, like, early The Next Generation. I guess they had to mature up to Deep Space Nine until they actually got to the point where they could have something like that as a permanent plotline.
Yeah. Well, now... Sure, Tyranids have interesting stealth stuff, but they're not the only ones that do this. The other famous one, I guess, would be Alpha Legion. You never know who they are, where they are, or what the heck they're up to.
Yeah, especially you don't really know about their intentions and, their actual place in a greater 40k universe. And that has been, put into doubt even more with the release of all those Horus Heresy novels, where you actually realize that they might be, good guys working together with Chaos, or have entirely different motives than all the other Chaos Space Marines, or maybe all of that is lost in the meantime. But as a matter of fact, they're masterful infiltrators and work with cults a lot.
Yep.
Yeah, I really like the Alpha Legion. If I were to do when I do a 30k army, let's put it out there. When I do a 30k army, it's gonna be Alpha Legion.
Yeah, I really like their color scheme for starters, and their unfanciness and bluntness and look, and then you have those tactics they go for, and that's just awesome, amazing, yeah. And also just their doubtful motives are very exciting. I feel. By the way, did you ever read Legion?
No.
The Alpha Legion novel of the Horus Heresy series?
No, I haven't read anything like that.
I never got that far in the Horus Heresy.
You totally should. First of all, it's a Dan Abnett novel, and you should damn well know to read everything that guy writes.
We should damn well read his Heresy. Bang!
Yes, not the Horus one. It's a pun heresy. Okay. But yeah, I'm just not gonna spoil it for you in that case. But you totally, I mean, especially you, Adam, being interested in doing a Alpha Legion army at some point in time, you should read Legion by Dan Abnett, because it's like one of my absolutely favorite 40k novels ever, and it's very like, you know, self-sufficient.
Well, I think that it's actually the next one on my list for Horus Heresy, because I think yeah, the last one I read was Descent of Angels, and I think Legion is next.
All right.
That sounds cool.
Alpha Legion.
Yeah, you mentioned cultists. Now, I've always wondered about the Alpha Legion. Like, my original thought for Alpha Legion was to do a weird scheme where they were like disguised or even in nondescript armor instead of their parade scheme. But then it got me thinking, like, well, how do they? I can understand how they infiltrate other Space Marine chapters or legions, but how would they infiltrate like a government or something? And I was imagining like a nobody look at me. I'm not a Space Marine. I'm just really, really tall.
Yeah, no.
I have a fake mustache.
That's actually not at all how it happens, but
Yeah.
you know, you can imagine. I mean, their actual primary like secret, sneaky, stealthy modus operandi in the 41st Millennium would be actually that they work with you know, a lot of subversion of imperial societies, a lot of work on building cults, a lot of operatives establishing cults for them, a lot of distraction by manipulating and using other chaos and imperial forces, and you know, just staying ahead of the enemy and planting like distractions far off from the place where they actually intend to strike, and never being, you know, obvious about their motives. So that's pretty much what they're doing. And like, you know, the Inquisition really hates the Alpha Legion. I think we did a Deep Strike Radio episode on the Alpha Legion once, and that was one of the main points where, you know, they're not even bothered by the fact that the Inquisition tries to keep their involvement in cults hidden, because the Inquisition is really bothered about how stupid Alpha Legion makes them look. In terms of, you know, in the end it was all the Alpha Legion, but we only learned that after they reached their actual goal, which was, you know, which nobody expected. It's sort of like this. So less the fact that you have a power armored Space Marine posing as someone, that's just stupid.
Okay, yeah, I guess that makes sense. You know, the fact that they frustrate the Inquisition and are universally reviled by the Ultramarines really appeals to me.
Well, I think the universally reviled by Ultramarines thing is the fact that they put Gulliman into a coma in a duel with one of their Primarchs, or something like that. I seem to recall that was sort of the main reason, but on the other hand, yeah, they're sort of the opposite, you know, always being sneaky and full of surprises and very prone to asymmetrical warfare.
The one thing that really, really got me about their story is the fact that unlike some of the other legions who will use legerdemain to upset the balance of power on a world and then use that confusion to attack, like, they degenerate things on a world to a point where there's casualties before they even show up. And when they do show up, it's more like they're just murdering everyone rather than fighting a war. Do you have anything to add, Snort?
No, I was actually thinking enough of the Alpha Legion. Do we have any other examples?
Well, definitely the Imperium has its own... The Imperium has its own invisible threats to other factions in the galaxy, don't they?
If you're thinking of the Officio Assassinorum.
Yeah, those jerks.
Yeah. Well, that is actually an interesting faction, I would say. Too bad they're really difficult to have as a standalone faction, but I think it's really cool that you can actually have them as models in your Inquisition armies and such.
Yeah, and I think that brings a point that I've been meaning to make throughout this introduction, in that a lot of these forces can be easily we can make up rules for any of this stuff. There's nothing saying that you can't use the Sarges acting strangely in your game somewhere when you're playing Tyranids. Come up with some rules. Assign some points to it. Assassins. Does it make sense for your Imperial Guard army, or I'm sorry, your Ministorum, whatever, Adepta Ministorum army? There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to add an assassin to that army. Just an assassin.
The militant priests.
Oh, right. Wow, how cool would that be as a supplement, by the way? Well, I guess that's the Sisters of Battle, isn't it?
Yeah, that would be the Brothers of Battle, I guess.
Well, but there aren't much of them, right? I mean, there's sort of that law thing going on with no man at arms. They are kind of subverting in a linguistically very dubious way by having women fight.
You also have people like Steve who are he's doing Brothers of Battle. He has a whole contingent of his army that's male Sisters of Battle, basically, by the rules.
And
male Sisters of Battle, really?
Well, they're not Sisters of Battle, but he's using the Sisters of Battle rules. Check out his posts. There's some cool stuff.
I can actually distinctly recall that during 2nd edition there was a male troop type within the Sisters of Battle Codex named Fraterius Militia. And that was actually just like, Sisters of Battle conscript elements of the population when, everything is really going down the drain. And that was fun because they looked like regular dudes with guns. That was like the ultimate conscript. Like, we don't even have body armor or uniforms for those guys. Those shirts and jeans will totally do.
Just to clarify, I'm assuming that by Steve you mean Inquisitor Steve of the Overlords?
Sorry, the Steve. That's right,
yeah.
The Steve. I apologize. Yeah, Inquisitor Steve of the Overlords. He has some cool stuff. And there's no reason not to treat the Officio Assassinorum exactly the same as the Inquisition. There's no reason you shouldn't be able to add that stuff to your army. And I think it's only a matter of time, possibly maybe the Grey Knights Codex release, before they put out some kind of supplement that just lets you take assassins in your Imperial army. So I say go ahead and do it.
I mean, there are various temples of assassins, and I think at this point in 40k we only got official rules for the Vindicare, or am I mistaken?
No, you have Vindicare, Averser Assassins, Calixus, Calidus.
Oh, do you have rules for all of them?
You would think that you don't, but really only people use the gun. The gun one.
Okay.
Yeah, well, definitely the Averser Assassin, I'm pretty sure, has rules.
The last time I've seen either a Calidus, Averser, or Calixus Assassin on the table was 2nd edition, so that's why I'm asking.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. Maybe I just outed myself as really ignorant of the Inquisition or Grey Knights Codex or whatever. But
it's a good thing to be. It's a good thing to be ignorant of, Camille.
Oh, all right. I think ignorance is bliss. This is basically what the Inquisition is teaching us, aren't they?
Yeah, that's pretty much what they hammer home time and time again. So I guess we should just put a capstone on this. I think modern society does frown upon the admittance that these kind of covert operations are very, very effective, but they are. Anybody who's played a role-playing game knows that an assault from the darkness always trumps losing thousands of men in a frontal assault. If you can eliminate an enemy threat and only lose a small team of individuals or one person, you are way ahead of your enemy. So I think that it's important that these, even though it's not exciting on the battlefield a lot of the time, which I think is why there's not a lot of this in 40k, it's not, the excitement in 40k is the all full scale war. I mean, you're not gonna play a game with just as one model against a legion. That's for role playing games. That's for what's the name of the 40k role playing game?
Deathwatch.
Yeah, I think
Oh.
Rogue Trader / Deathwatch are the two main ones.
And you'll see a lot of this more in those games, but there's no reason that we can't have some elements of these invisible threats in Warhammer 40,000.
Now, I actually tend to disagree. Just to make a real smooth turn towards the first set of rules we are presenting with this episode.
But if you're anything, it's smooth.
Yeah, exactly. Because there is actually one thing better than one covert assault out of the dark, eliminating key enemy prospects instead of, really sacrificing thousands and tens of thousands of soldiers. And that would be to actually make enemy troop elements do your bidding. How's that?
That sounds delightful.
Exactly. And this way, we are turning this episode towards our first rule set, namely the Enslavers. Now, Enslavers are extra-dimensional warp beings of incomprehensibly alien intelligence, like that incomprehensible that Adeptus Terra and all their specialists still don't know if they're really sentient, or if they have the means to communicate, or if they just don't bother. They're alien in every way, and the more we tell you about those guys, the more you'll realize the similarities to a certain mythos and certain old B movies you may love or loathe. Now, when I say that they are extra-dimensional warp beings, the first things that is sort of curious is that they seem to be really untouched by any particular chaos power, like any of the four ruinous powers, actually, or the main four, rather. And despite possessing a material form, as they appear within the material realm, it is said that they spent at least part of their life cycle exclusively in warp space. And they actually have the ability to traverse the warp with those bodies, which is unusual for a natural creature. Very much so. Now, as for their bodily form, it's pretty much a levitating clump of flesh, slightly, taller than a man, sprouting 8 to 12 tentacles. And 2 of those are pretty much their, arms, manipulative tentacles, and those are larger, and they also gain sensory information from those. And also their clumpy bodies feature a single large sensory organ, which is sort of like an eye, sort of not. And we don't really know what it does, but it is said to be eerily similar to a mask with many eye holes, and that's nightmare material right there.
These guys look like the flying spaghetti monster.
These guys look like an eldritch abomination, straight out of Lovecraftian lore.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Absolutely. Either that or a flumph. Do you know what a flumph is?
And
no,
not quite.
It is the saddest D&D monster ever.
Oh, actually,
right, move on.
Okay. Actually, about this, there is one D&D monster that looks a bit like them. That would be the Grail.
Oh yeah, they're
Grail?
very Grail-like. Yeah.
Except for the beak and those that brain-like texture, they're pretty much Grail.
Or a Beholder. Copyright Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, but Beholder has a large toothy mouth, doesn't he? So
yeah, the Beholder will actually eat people. These things eat souls.
Yeah, pretty much. So their main method of travel, actually, just getting around the galaxy, is traversing the warp. And they navigate the Empyrean by following the psychic vibrations of psychers, who are their primary prey, the guys whose soul they actually eat, and whose powers they feast on during their particular method of possession, culminating in erupting from their mortal forms. So they pretty much, lock on a psyker from up to 10 light years away within the warp. And first of all, it's sort of like a possession. And as soon as they've drained them of all their energies and feasted on their powers, they pretty much, erupt from their bodies in the most messy way possible, and that's just gross. So
the Emperor's an enslaver?
I actually don't think so.
I know,
but you totally can write erotic fan fiction about that if that sort of
That's
rings
my
a bell
jam,
to you.
you know.
Yeah.
You guys.
We're
Now-
being totally serious.
Yeah, now it's sort of easier for example, for sanctioned psychers to actually hide their like warp shadow, their warp presence from an enslaver, and they even may be able to resist the attempts to be of possession from an enslaver for a time. But as a matter of fact, it's like there's like no way to be 100% sure that this doesn't happen to you, and that is just one more terrifying thing about being a psyker in the 41st millennium. Now, the main thing about the enslavers, like the main danger that stems from their sheer existence, are actually their mental powers. And enslaver is actually the human name for them, and they are called this way because they possess the ability to temporarily and, given enough time, permanently control the minds of material creatures, like mortal creatures. And those are being enslaved for combat, manual labor, and communication. We don't quite know if enslavers are incapable or just too lazy and above such behavior, but they enslave people to do their bidding. And single enslavers, like the single creatures themselves, actually vary in mental control powers, most likely depending on their age or experience. But most are able to dominate a dozen sentient beings at once to do their, like, actually every bidding, even, self-harming exercises. So that's pretty creepy. And sometimes they are forming up to bands of 3 and strengthen their terrible power and allow for far more permanent, enhanced form of control that then, and here comes the really disgusting part, gradually leave the victims like, sickly, tired, and pale, and degenerating into a horrible, fleshy mutation within a few days, actually.
I think we've described this already. Maybe there's a bunch of enslavers in the factory on, was it egg? Not egg. The factory in episode 2.
Egg Mortis, yeah, no, definitely.
That was Egg Mortis, yeah, indeed.
Yeah, my mind isn't working.
That's okay.
I blame my headache.
Yeah, sorry, Snorri. You're doing good for having such a headache.
It's okay.
Yeah, I think so too. Now, you're right. I didn't even think of it that way.
I'm pretty sure that it has nothing to do with that. Sorry, David. We had no idea we were going to make fun of your book.
David,
sorry.
We were paying attention. We're just idiots.
Yeah.
Okay, now, just to finish this part off, they actually turn some of their victims into fleshy, clumpy, pulsating warp gates made out of their bodies, which is... I
don't know, still sounds better than living on Egg Mortis.
And still a better love story than Twilight. Okay. So,
and there's another person giving us a bad review.
Oh, yeah. Indeed. Firefly rules, by the way. So, they actually mutate people into the inanimate form of warp gates. I just can't emphasize that enough, because that's just horrible, and I'm totally glad to not have to write rules about that, because that is a process taking days, and I don't think that it fits into the frame of one single battle. So there's that.
And also, how do you even conceptualize what it is to be a physical, meaty warp gate?
Yeah, maybe it's totally awesome. Maybe it gives you like a constant endorphinal pleasure or something. I don't even know. I do not want.
Maybe you turn into a golden thing that shines and just spews out psychic energy, like that guy on that throne
You
thing.
mean like Miley Cyrus? Okay, no.
No,
those
yeah, I
references.
think you turn into a meaty hole, and a bunch of enslavers enter you once and leave you cold. That's what happens.
This is the most grim, dark thing ever, ever thought into being. This is just horrible. So anyway, bands of enslavers then use those gates to travel the warp unrestricted. And this is how myriads of enslavers can invade and take over whole systems. Another reason for the paranoia towards unchecked psychers within the Imperium of Man, because unchecked human psychers are actually like their preferred target. Everything else is like well protected, well trained, or whatever. But you have one unchecked psyker on your planet, and he lives long enough and exerts his powers often enough to catch the attention of one or multiple enslavers. Your planet is doomed. So historically, or rather talking about their origin, enslavers were actually the most powerful minions created by the Old Ones during the War in the Heavens, when the Old Ones fought the C'tan and the Necrons, who were led by the C'tan.
So the Old Ones created another race? What could possibly go wrong?
Everything, because that was actually what led to the cataclysmic fall of the Old Ones and the retreat of the C'tan. So what happened was that they were created as a psychic warrior race, pretty much restricted to the Immaterium or Empyrean or Warp Space or whatever you call it. But during the War in Heaven, the Empyrean actually became a hellish place and distorted beyond recognition. So what happened then was that the enslavers developed the ability to possess psychers of the young races, also created by the Old Ones as servants, and pretty much broke out of warp space and started scouring the galaxy of all life and enslaving all lives in order to bring even more of their kind into real space. So that was pretty much what drove the C'tan into their stasis, and the Necrons by that means, and what led to the fall of the Old Ones, because they turned all of their slave races against them.
So I didn't realize that the enslavers were played such a major part in the downfall of the Old Ones. That's very interesting.
Yeah, it's sort of a small piece of trivia with very big consequences in terms of the lore. Yeah, so you have to imagine that in the end, like towards the end of the War in Heaven, you had that psychic swarm utterly scouring and devouring the galaxy and cleansing it of all life, because they turned all kinds of life into portals or just drained their psychic energy and basically ate their souls. So in the end, actually, that psychic swarm died down because there was nothing left to consume, and only starting from that, life could spread anew. And even like nowadays in the 41st millennium, what we consider nowadays in the context of the lore, we're at a point where the enslaver population is only so little because, they're pretty much still recovering from their own success.
Yeah, plus there's a colossally powerful psychic being consuming whatever latent psychers there are in the universe at breakneck speeds.
So basically, he's sort of like the Doom of they are sort of like the Doom of Malantai, the race.
Yeah, interesting.
Similar, yeah. Now that you mention it, definitely. Now, I, for my part, welcome our new enslaver overlords. And
of course you do.
So first of all, now talking about the rules we have come up with for those. First of all, I welcome them in our GM-led games. Adam, you're pretty much our specialist in terms of GM-led games. Do you wanna give a little intro on how to, integrate them into that kind of game?
Yeah, when you're a GM, you're always looking for excuses to shake things up, and you're also looking for ways to patch up plot holes that you create unexpectedly. So, you can include them as part of a scenario as a third party, or if someone is, I had this problem actually during one of our campaign games recently, where we had 2 players who were playing Space Marines in a team against one person who was playing Dark Eldar. And the Dark Eldar player completely tailored his list to annihilate the Space Marines. Like, he had Dark Lances, he had those stupid little blasters with their AP2 or AP3, and like, it was 1,000 points versus 1,000 points, and I looked at that game and it was going to be a quick and not fun game. So I decided to teach the Dark Eldar player lesson by allowing one of the Space Marines player's girlfriends to take her Chaos Space Marine, or take her Chaos Demons, take her favorite Demon Prince, and bring him on with a few extra wounds, and work for the side of the Imperium, because the Dark Eldar hadn't done well in their last game, so it was important that Tzeentch teach the Dark Eldar a lesson. And this, you can do something similar here, where you can, if you're seeing that one of the players is having a problem or having a bad time of it, you can add a few Enslavers in there as a way of sneaking in some fun extra stuff.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, they are a great tool for that kind of intervention. First of all, because nobody really understands what their actual motives are. They're not aligned with any particular 40k army, and they just, you do know why they appear. Like, they trace Psychers through the Immaterium, but you never quite know what kind of scheme they're actually plotting. So it's no problem to have them act like you as a GM want them to act right now, because their motives are actually alien and incomprehensible.
I agree. Yeah, motivations are easy to come up with. Same thing with Tyranids and other races. Like, it's so easy to write them in sometimes.
Yeah, another actual idea I had for using them in GM-led games is to completely turn around a sort of regular battle between 2 armies by just bringing in Enslaver unit after Enslaver unit, and suddenly forcing the 2 other players whose armies just fought each other to the blood to cooperate against the Enslavers, while the Enslavers strike out against both sides.
Yeah, kind of like G.I. Joe and Cobra, when the drug dealers show up, they're like, wait a minute, yes, we're a terrorist organization, but dealing drugs to kids is freaking wrong, man. Let's team up and fight the drug dealers.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, hooray for American bad television with even worse hidden messages.
Well, anyway, that will be a real nasty surprise for that kind of GM-led game, where people actually expect to fight each other, but like in the midst of it, they're pretty much thrown into a B-movie plot. Where they have to cooperate or die, and, well, even if they win in the end, they will most likely slaughter each other because it's grimdark, but whatever.
Super grimdark.
So anyway, with the following rules, you can totally use Enslavers at the Game Master's discretion, or alternatively, you can also, and we have written that stuff this way, use them as an allied or main detachment. Yes, you heard that right. We are presenting, if you want, we are presenting the rules to make up a whole army out of Enslavers. And just another note before we start off that part. If you have allied units in an Enslaver army, or Enslavers as allies to your army, it is to be assumed that this is not the usual kind of voluntary alliance. Alright, So now for Enslavers as a playable detachment, being a main or an allied one. An Enslaver main detachment is composed of exactly one Enslaver coven that must include 3 Enslavers, which is the maximum number per coven, which is in unit, filling HQ slot, which is not granted any warlord trait, and 2 to 6 Enslaver covens filling troop slots, or rather 4 to 12 in that regard if you're using the double force orc at or above 2k points. And by the way, those never count as scoring units for the purpose of mission objectives, which is interesting in the light of a game mechanic we're going to talk about later, so just stay tuned. Now, as for an allied detachment of Enslavers, and that is composed of, similarly composed of 1 coven filling an HQ slot, and a minimum of 1, maximum of 2 Enslaver covens filling troop slots, which, as well as their, main detachment equivalent, are never scoring. So, Enslavers count as battle brothers to all factions of Warhammer 40k. Yes, Tyranids too. But all non-Enslaver units allied with Enslavers, be it as an allied detachment or a main detachment, suffer a permanent -1 leadership characteristic penalty. That would be the rules of how to integrate them like as a playable faction into regular games of 40k. And now for the actual unit rules. An Enslaver Coven would be 84 points, with characteristics of Weapon Skill 3, Ballistic Skill 3, Strength 4, Toughness 5, 3 wounds, Initiative 4, 2 attacks technically, and a leadership of 10 with an invulnerable save of 5++.
They're almost demony, but not
almost demony. Yeah, I mean they're warp beings after all, so
yeah.
They are sort of similar. Now, unit type, of course, infantry, and the basic composition would be 1 Enslaver. That's what you're getting for your 84 points. Their war gear is limited to tentacles that count as 2 close combat weapons, and that's why those 2 attacks are already included in their attacks characteristic. And as for options, you only got that they may include up to 2 additional Enslavers for 83 points immortal.
I demand. I don't like anything that you can't take a power claw on. So I'm not sure how I feel about that, but we'll talk about that later. Move on.
Well, I know how you feel about Yarick then, but yeah.
Yeah. I should be able to take him as an ally for my orcs. Oh, wait,
You totally should.
Go ahead.
Now, as for special rules, you have moved through cover because they're sort of hovering above the ground with their tentacles flaying about and helping them through places, but mostly they cannot hover like higher than 3 meters. So they are not, jump troops or anything of that kind. They only get moved through cover. They can infiltrate, deep strike. And they have 3 more special rules that are very specific to them, and I'm now gonna talk about those in detail. Those would be Ways of the Warp, Mind Control, and Permanent Link. First of all, Ways of the Warp means that at the beginning of your movement phase, you can choose to immediately remove an Enslaver Coven from the board and redeploy the unit using the Deep Strike rules. So far, so Gate of Infinity. But, yeah. Now, just listen up, because a unit of Enslavers deploying via Ways of the Warp outside of a 12-inch of an enemy or friendly Psyker model always scatters. If you roll a hit, use the arrow on the hit symbol to make up the direction in which they divert. And a unit of Enslavers deep striking within 12-inch of an enemy or friendly Psyker, on the other hand, do not scatter at all.
I love this. This ability that you've used here because it makes total sense. They hone in on the life force of a psyker or a being that's in some way connected to the warp, a life force. I think that's wonderful, and I think other people, if you're coming up with your own rules, should keep this one in mind for other things too.
Thank you very much. So now for their main means of attack and manipulating the enemy, and in the end, pretty much their main means of combat, which is the mind control special ability. Now, once during your movement phase, you can declare that an Enslaver Coven uses its mind control ability against an enemy unit or vehicle. The target unit immediately rolls a number of leadership checks equal to the number of models the Enslaver Coven is composed of. Their leadership score modified by minus the number of enslavers beyond the first. So you roll as many leadership checks as there are like enslavers in that one unit that is targeting one enemy unit, and you modify the leadership by the number of extra enslavers you put into that unit. So, for example, if you have 2 enslaver models in one coven, target a unit and it has to roll 2 leadership checks in succession, both with a -1 modifier to their leadership characteristic. Now, units without a leadership characteristic count as having an LD score of 10 and roll 3d6 to determine the result using the 2 lowest dice rolls.
It's a little harder because maybe one guy and maybe one of the pilots or one of the drivers is, he's trying to turn the truck one way, and his friend maybe looks at him and say, "Hey man, we got to go that way," and grab the wheel.
Exactly. You have like crews spread across the vehicle, and on the other hand, they have no real line of sight to the crew members. So this is why this gets so hard. But with 3 enslavers in one coven, you still have a chance. Let's put it that way. Now, the consequences of those rolls, those 1, 2, 3 leadership checks, will be the following. If the target unit fails one of those leadership checks, you assume control of the unit for the rest of the movement phase of this turn, as if it would be part of your army, treating them as battle brother allies. And you place 1 permanent link marker on the unit. If the unit fails 2 of those, it's pretty much the same, only that you also control them during the shooting phase of this turn, and you put 2 permanent link markers on the unit. And if the target unit fails all 3 possible leadership checks, you assume control of the unit for the movement, the shooting, and the close combat phase, including charging and 1 round of close combat technically, and also place 3 permanent link markers on the unit, and those will come into play later.
Mind Fro.
Pretty much. Now, there's a caveat to that. If you do not target a unit that has like permanent link markers on it with any Enslaver Coven's mind control ability for a whole player turn, or rather your whole Enslaver player turn, you remove all permanent link markers from it. So
they have to keep on focusing their mind on the target.
Exactly. They have to like lock onto their targets until they're like fully controlled to make a permanent link and not give up on that. So that's sort of a possibility to get away, although you already were mind controlled a few times. Like you get a chance to retreat before the worst happens in most cases. Now, for that permanent link ability, that will be the last one of the 3. And that works as follows. If the number of permanent link markers a unit suffered ever surpasses its initiative characteristic, you assume control of the unit for the remainder of the game, as if it would be part of your army, treating them as battle brother allies, and as scoring units for the purpose of mission objectives, no matter what kind of slot they belong into. And remember, as like a pure Enslaver player, you have no other scoring units.
Right. Before anybody kind of poo-poos on this as being relatively powerful, I would like to point out that at 83 points or 84 points a model with a 5++ invulnerable save, and really, and not being independent characters, I think that any unit that's going to fail 3 consecutive leadership checks in a turn should not be like one of your high point units anyways that's put out front. You know, your 700 point unit of Ork Mega Knobs or you know, Terminators is probably not going to be failing 3 of these checks in a turn, or 4 of these checks. You know what I'm saying? So, and even if you do lose a unit to this in one turn, you know, the Enslavers are. Yeah, a unit of 3 Enslavers is something like, what is it? Almost
250 points.
Yeah,
exactly.
250 points. So, you know, and easily killed. So I think that the balance here is pretty good. It needs to be play tested more, but I think it's not too bad and fun.
I think so too, because I mean, let's be honest about this. This turns 40k into a whole different kind of game. In a way, because you may be still using the same rules, but technically, you need to plan out the battle in an entirely different way on both sides, because you just have to keep in mind, or rather, you have to plan out combos. So, like, I'm gonna possess this unit in this turn and attack that unit with it, like, in that time frame. And that unit I have to possess and possess so hard that they stay permanently with me, and then pull them into my backfield to conquer that objective, and so on. It's just, you know, it sort of puts you into an enslaver mindset, I think.
Yeah, this unit might actually be a good chance to think about personal objectives in a game, and like my personal objective is to mind control Marnius Calgar's unit or whatever, you know.
Yeah, exactly, and also, let's be honest about this. This whole army concept is a beautiful counter against Death Star armies.
Yeah, exactly. And that's another thing, you know, I wasn't going to say it this way, but that's kind of what I was getting at before, where I'm like, well, if you have your 700 point unit out there and it gets mind controlled, well, you only have yourself to blame.
Yeah, exactly. That's sort of like, you know, putting all your eggs into one basket.
Yep, and you only have yourself to blame for it, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
So, really cool unit, Camille. I enjoy it. I think it's sweet. I could see people using this in a game or two.
Yeah, I like it too. I think it's a very interesting kind of unit, and it's one that I don't really see myself playing, because to me it's just so, sorry for the pun here, but alien to play. But at the same time, like I said, it has its very interesting choices. You can do this, you can do that, but it's not sort of like I don't think it's like beginner's army kind of unit. I think this is something for people who have tried everything and wants to try something really new.
Yeah.
Definitely, yeah. Or on the other hand, like people who are actually game mastering games of 40k, I think that's very attractive for them too.
And it's attractive for people who are fluff nuts too. I mean, this from what I get from your discussion in the beginning, this is an integral part of the 40k universe that hasn't really been represented on the tabletop anytime recently.
Well, it's integral, but at the very same time, very like obscure, you know. But on the other hand, I feel it's not really like, you know, there are parts of integral fluff from the days of yore of Rogue Trader that are outdated by now, that just don't fit in anymore, and I don't think that the Enslavers fit into that kind of profile. I think it's still quite exciting.
Yeah, and not only that, this could be an entry-level thing for a new and budding fluff bunny to model on the table, don't you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think this is well within the modeling capabilities of many players of any skill set to, properly represent a hovering flash stack on tentacles on the field.
There's a lot of D&D monsters that you can use, like we were talking before. Just grab some green stuff and mush some green stuff onto your D&D monster.
Yeah,
right?
And I mean, 12 of those guys are a 1,000-point army. So if you ever want to play a house rule army or try something truly alien, I think this is a very good way to do it.
So, Camille, you said you might have some modeling tips for people?
Definitely. Now, the first kind of modeling possibility for Enslavers is sort of the most obvious one, and also a very good possibility if you actually insist on playing in GW stores, even if you like use third-party rules. But it's not like that's forbidden in GW stores. It's more about the modeling. So those will be meiotic spore sacs from Forge World, which are pretty much amorphous sacs on tentacles. There are only two caveats with that. I mean, the models themselves looks very cool, but they're a bit too large, actually.
Camille?
Yeah?
Maybe you should just consider the regular Games Workshop Spore Mine clusters.
Yeah, but those are too small on the other hand.
Well, one or the other. It's like, yeah, okay, so maybe they're not to
too
scale,
large,
but
too
hey.
small. I mean, yeah, you can like mix and match those, and whatever you feel like. I've seen several people do great enslavers with meiotic spore sacs, but also those are like almost 20 pounds per 3, so that they're not really a cheap option. On the other hand, I don't know what spore mines actually cost, so there's that.
You know what? I think the meiotic spore would be great for the enslaver, and the spore mines would be great for your enslaver tokens.
Yeah, that's a really neat idea. Wow. Nice one, Adam.
Well, I always like to bridge the gap between warring factions. So,
You're a diplomat.
I am a diplomat.
Typically American, I dare to say.
Yeah. Well, we like to try to get to the beer as quickly as possible.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, the only thing you would have to do with spore mines, as well as meiotic spore, would be to maybe model like the primary manipulative tentacles, like the arms, and the eye in the center, or rather the eye mask. But those are very good base models.
Yeah, hey, and I have a product that might be good for your tentacles. Not that just rolling green stuff wouldn't be easy, but there's a product that's been really, really popular among our circles recently called the Green Stuff Industries Tentacle Maker. Yeah, it does exactly what it says it does, to be perfectly honest. I really don't need to go into it much more than that. It's at greenstuffindustries.blogspot.com.
I've got 3 more possibilities. You can, like in terms of buying models to represent your enslavers, just in case you don't want to sculpt your own ones. The next one would be actually from Mantic Games. And it's called the Chovar Psychic from their Dead Zone line. That's Chovar. It's a thing. It's on tentacles. It's about the right size, as far as I can tell from the comparison pics. So have fun with that. Sadly, those are like 10 pounds a piece. So I don't know. I would use those like for my HQ coven maybe, but they look pretty cool. But not really like 10 pounds a piece cool, but maybe you're really going for that kind of look they have, because they have those nice fins at the end of their tentacles, and they have just the right amount of tentacles, and they're kind of cool.
Cool.
So the next thing is something we actually mentioned, because there are miniatures for D&D, and there are Grail Miniatures for D&D. Now, those are sort of soft plastic miniatures. I don't know, Adam, are you familiar with those? The D&D miniatures you use for the actual role-playing game?
Definitely, and maybe just an addendum here. The living spell, the living fireball spell, is amazing for ongoing fire effects in 40k and for Rex.
Oh yeah, I see those. I've seen those before. That's very cool. But on topic, there is the Grail in Dungeons & Dragons Miniatures expansion called Death Knell. And I mean, normally you get those Dungeons & Dragons miniatures from booster packs where you're not really seeing what you're getting. But on the other hand, you have so much secondhand retailers, and you have eBay that offer them on stock. that especially those common and uncommon miniatures are really easy to get. And this one is like wherever I looked, it's like $3 or $4 a piece. So those aren't a bad deal at all. You will have to deal with that the softer kind of plastic, but that's not a real problem. That's the same as the World of Warcraft miniatures I've used in some conversions for my Chaos Space Marine army for Snake Buddies.
Yeah, those models, we've done some doctoring of them in the past, and the old Griffin Sepia, it works wonders with those models. So I don't know what the modern Griffin Sepia is, but it works really well.
Yeah, you mean in terms of paint of giving them more of a quality paint job?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and on the other hand, I for my part just primed all over it because actually the colors that are the paint that is like already on them is like baked in. It's like barely noticeable if you just prime it over. It's not like a thick coat or anything like that. Right. So that's not a problem. All you would have to do about those Grail would be like cut off the beak and see if you want to keep that brain sex texture or just want to sculpt over it. But I think it's a good opportunity to just have some basic model with, hovering sack with tentacles underneath. Right amount of tentacles too.
Yeah.
And the last one would be from Ralpartha Europe Miniatures. I found those on ralparthaeurope.co.uk, and it's called the Skypho Zone. That's SCYPHOZOAN. A bit complicated. We're gonna link it in the show notes, I think. And it has the designation RP001. It's actually from the RPE exclusive section, so I sort of assume that Ralpartha North America doesn't have it or whatever. And those are also hovering tentacly things with, not really bulky or sacky, but rather streamlined bodies. But I think it's fair enough, and it's like £4 a piece, so that's a decent price too. One big plus point would be it's like exactly the right size in relation to a human model. So there's that, and that would be the end to my list.
Woo! Whew. I think I need a drink.
That's quite a lot of enslaving, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm feeling my mind starting to drift again, guys. Must get beer. Must get beer for face hole.
It's sort of clear what enslaved you. All right.
My contribution to this week's podcast is Kurzig's Kommandos. Now, no, we don't want to turn this whole podcast into a session of us telling you about our D&D characters kind of situation, which is always painful.
Although that would be worthy bonus content.
Yeah, it really would. It really
later.
Would be. But my idea I wrapped up in my own WOG's story. You can feel free to use these rules in whatever way you see fit. Don't feel obligated to use my fluff for your fluff. You can just steal the rules. We always recommend that. So Mad Doc Drillteeth has pulled his fleet back from the borders of Ultramar after his monumental defeat at the hands of stupid Tigerius.
Damn him.
And pretty much every other stupid Space Marine player at Adepticon. So he's had to withdraw to the few worlds that he's conquered in the inward portion of the southeastern spiral arm. First of all, he actually decided to punish his boys by taking his sweet time flying through the warp towards home base, forcing them to fight demons and stuff. But this got really boring for him, and he ran out of episodes of Supernatural and Buffy the Vampire Slayer to watch. So he decided to conscript orcs into enacting future episodes of the shows that he stole. Some of them got really good at it, mainly because, well, it's a lot better than being eaten by demons, to be perfectly honest. One orc got really good at it. His name is Kurzig. He has a real flair for the enemy, and one of the most competent commandos in Mad Dog Jolteef's stable. It doesn't hurt that he was once of the Blood Axe clan before joining up with the more unified Wog Jolteef.
So you're actually calling Wog Jolteef unified?
They really are, and I won't go too much into it, but there are 3 main factions that joined Wog Jolteef. And that's kind of the whole point of a Ork Wog. An Ork Wog is not a single force in and of itself, but a conglomerate of other Ork forces, which have been either drawn to the violence through the latent psychic power of the combined boys of the main Wog, or simply through submission by the warlord himself. So, anyways, the troop got really good at this, and Mad Doc got to thinking, well, wait a minute. I've been jumping through hoops trying to outwit the Imperium. I've been trying to use these Trojan horse tactics, and I've been trying to be sneaky and hiding my forces and ambushes and stuff like that. My orcs are really good at pretending to be other people, and Yumis to boot. And some of them are getting really good at making themselves up to look like Yumis too. Why don't I try to actually infiltrate Yumi positions, or even heck, pansies too? Why not? Beakies, sure, we can fit an orc in power armor.
Pure brilliance.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, it doesn't hurt that over time, some of these orc actors, actually started to take their job a little too seriously and started to think they were their characters.
Like method acting.
That's right, orc method acting. Kurzig is the most, he's the biggest perpetrator of this method acting. The only problem with orcs is when they start believing something, it starts to become real.
So Kurzig is like the Daniel Day-Lewis of orcs.
Yeah. You don't want to see him dressed up like a sister battle. It's not pretty.
But you will.
You will, especially if you look on my blog.
Definitely.
Sister B. Arfer is his Sisters of Battle persona that he takes very, very seriously. Anyways, yeah, so the entire idea behind this unit called Kurzig's Kommandos is a infiltrating group of orcs who believe so hard that they are the enemy that they can briefly confuse the enemy into believing that they are with them, and hilarity ensues.
Yeah, it's sort of like, psychic powers, a bit like in terms of, explaining the temporary effect that may have, that they believe so much into being those enemies,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like the old invisibility from Vampire the Masquerade, where in Vampire the Masquerade you're not actually invisible. It's just that other people think you're invisible. They can't see you. You're not invisible. People can't see you. There's a difference. So this is kind of the same thing, especially if the disguises aren't so good and the orcs aren't as experienced. They just kind of walk nearby, and the enemy actually just thinks that they're part of the force. All right, so Kurzig's Kommandos are an elite's choice for Codex Orcs. They have the exact same stats as a regular commando, so I won't repeat them here, but they're basically a boy. And they have Achappas and Sluggas. They're 60 points for 5 of them, so that makes them 5 points more expensive than a regular a commando. They can be taken in groups of up to 20. 2 commandos, just like regular commandos, can take special weapons, either Burnas, rocket launches, or big shooters. I've also added the custom Mega Blaster in there. That helps for impersonating things like melta-guns and whatnot. 1 commando may be upgraded to a knob, and that knob can take a big choppa, a Burna, or a power claw. He can also take a boss pull of some kind. Their special rules are Wog, Furious Charge, Infiltrate, and Scout. They all also have makeshift disguises. And that's really the only thing. That isn't the only thing. The other difference is that they may take a looted wagon as a dedicated transport for 40 points. Although it may not have the boom gun upgrade, it may take any other upgrade specified in the looted wagon entry for the Ork Codex. This looted wagon gains the Infiltrate and Scout special rule, whether it has commandos embarked upon it or not. So the idea here isn't that the looted wagon is sneaking, behind trees like the old joke meme goes for Creed infiltrating with a Baneblade. Instead, it represents the enemy actually thinking it's a vehicle that belongs in their army.
Yeah, albeit in that case, orc belief influenced and very temporarily. But it's enough. It suffices.
Right. So let's start with the makeshift disguises, since that's really the only thing that's different here. Kurzig's commandos are capable of putting together slapdash attempts at disguise, which allow them to creep close to the enemy before striking. Commandos equipped with makeshift disguises may infiltrate as close as 9 inches an enemy outside of line of sight, and as close as 15 inches of an enemy within line of sight, rather than the usual 12 or 18 inches. So they basically get an additional 3 inches closer than a usual infiltrator. If you have commando models which are modeled with disguises matching any models in the enemy's army, they may ignore any special abilities which prevent infiltrate, such as servo skulls. They may also assault on the turn they infiltrate.
And that's just so much fun, because I can already see my Taudar disguised commandos.
How great would that be?
Yeah.
So this rule also applies to the dedicated transport that they may have, such as a looted immolator infiltrating an enemy force of Sisters of Battle. Note that the commandos do not need to be painted to match in order to receive this bonus. And you are allowed to bring extra models to the game to fit a multitude of armies.
So so it's not about color schemes or something like that. It's just they have to fit the enemy army in terms of, design, in terms of having a few bits of them or an evocation of them in their conversion style.
That's right.
Okay.
Just having a Space Marine miniature will not do. It must actually be an orc model converted to look like it has been stuffed in power armor, basically.
Which is the greatest thing ever. Now, how do you handle allied detachments with this?
It counts as an orc. You mean if the enemy has an ally? Yeah.
Right.
If you've got that, that's great. I mean, if your opponent has decided to bring 4 codexes of allied detachments, well, he's just made it a lot easier to carry models that interact with his army.
So, speaking of detachments, is it fair to disguise a commando as an Imperial Knight?
How great would that?
That is probably the only outfit that will actually fit an orc.
That's great. Yeah, the looted wagon. Hey, there are no rules for modeling a looted wagon. I would say bring an Imperial Knight as a looted wagon. There you go. All right, so
I just totally can't imagine, just using a regular Imperial Knight, like marching back to their Imperial Army comrades or something, and in the back of the knight, there's 12 orcs clinging on to the back of it.
So, looted knight, would that be Yumi Stompa?
Yeah, it is. Looted Knight Umi Stompa. That sounds like a great name for a looted Imperial Knight. I approve. So, the Kurzig's commandos do have an upgrade, which basically completely changes how the unit works. They can be outfitted with convincing disguises instead for 13 points a model. Convincing disguises represent the absolute most skilled of the Kurzig's commandos, and they're capable of convincing not only their enemy that they're allies, but sometimes even themselves. In addition to the abilities of makeshift disguises, convincing disguises allow Kurzig's commandos to appear in their enemy's midst just before the start of a battle. Before initiative is seized, you may select one of Kurzig's commandos which are in reserve. Then, select one of your opponent's units. If that unit is deployed, then you may reveal your commandos as doppelgangers in that unit. If not, you must wait until the selected enemy unit has arrived from reserve. If the enemy unit never arrives from reserves during your game, then the unit of commandos is destroyed. Now, the mechanic for this is a little clunky. If the listeners would like to send us some tips maybe on ways to streamline a little bit, I'd really appreciate it. But in lieu of that, here we go. When you reveal your doppelganger, select a commando model and roll a dice. On a 4+, replace any single non-character enemy infantry model that is either on the board, in a building, or in a vehicle with the commando. So it's basically 1-for-1 on a 4+, you replace their model with a commando. Knobs are allowed to replace characters, which do not have the independent character special rule, and they get a +1 on their roll. So the knobs are basically the most skilled of the art of disguise, and they're the only ones that are allowed to replace characters. Commandos which fail their role were obviously found out way before the battle and were killed before the battle began. Repeat this process against the same enemy unit until there are either no enemy models remaining or there are no commandos remaining in the selected unit. If there are no enemy models remaining or all that remains are characters, then the rest of the commandos are lost. So if there's a squad of 10 Space Marines and you take over for all of them and there's like 5 commandos left, say you got really lucky, those 5 commandos are lost. You can't get them back. Yeah, it's only fair. Like you bring on all those guys. It's only fair that you can't just put them on the table.
Yeah, sure.
Successful commando doppelgangers on the board are considered to be engaged in close combat with the enemy units they have appeared in and will fight in the next assault phase as an ongoing combat. So that's basically, especially if you have an independent character in there who can't be turned, you might end up with 10 commandos just locked in combat with an independent character a lot of the time.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, I can sort of see Marnius Calgar and suddenly his entire honor guard, as in all 3 of his honor guards, turn out to be knobs.
Yeah.
How great would that be?
Hey!
Go get him! No, how about we go get you? What the heck?
Those jokes are like totally writing themselves. I, for my part, can imagine that in the mid of battle, Commissar Yarrick just realizes that all of his honor guard squad are orcs, but they don't bother. They just fight alongside because they like him so much because he's so cool.
There should be a special rule in here. If you infiltrate Yarrick's squad, the Imperial player gets to play the orcs instead of fighting close combat because the orcs are hero worshipping Yarrick.
I think they would be more afraid of his laser eye than actually thinking the guy's cool, so they just don't dare touch him.
It's like
Right?
another commander comes along and he's like, you realize that all of your honor guard are orc? And Yorick is just, yep.
So successful commando doppelgangers inside buildings or transports immediately fight close combat as if they were in a building. There are rules for this in the book, so you just have to go. I doubt a lot of people have actually had a chance to use them, except that the commando models will swing at initiative 10, even if the knob has a power claw, and then are instantly destroyed, even if no enemy models remain. They're fighting inside of a building or a vehicle creates such a logic fault that it's better to just let the commandos get some really quick attacks as they seize the initiative inside the building, and then are just swept by whatever remaining enemies are left. It's really just the easiest way to handle that. You may repeat this process for any remaining infiltrating Kurzig's commando units. So you do it one model at a time and one unit at a time. Models that have been replaced by commandos are not considered casualties or removed from the table since they never existed in the first place. So abilities that trigger on remove from the game or remove from the table don't trigger because those models were never there to begin with.
Yep.
If you have commando models which are creatively modeled with disguises matching the models they replaced, kind of like in the last ability of the makeshift disguises, they get a +1 on their roll, which means knobs get a +2. Note the commandos need not be painted to match again, but they do need to be modeled. So simply replacing a Terminator model on the table does not a disguise make. It must actually look like an orc stuffed in Terminator armor.
And I think that's a great possibility if you have some sort of, favorite anime amongst your gaming group you've been playing for years now. And just, some people just put their, favorite enemy player or rather favorite opposing players' main army models on their bases or onto trophy racks or whatever. But why not convert some Ork Kommandos into, matching Terminators? That's just very cool.
And I guess this also invites grudge books.
Oh, definitely. And also, if the unit that they infiltrated never appears from reserves, I wouldn't consider them destroyed. I would just say that, while all the guys were in reserve, they managed to lure the squad into a bar and they just kind of stuck there and just have a great time and just never show up for the battle.
I like it. Yeah, the commandos tend to have a mind of their own. So I do have a really interesting thing about commandos that I'd like to share. I'm not sure if everybody's really read the Ork Codex or not, but there's a quote that is uttered during the court-martial of Lieutenant Gordo. This is Provost Major Kine. Half-glimpsed shadows? Orcs wearing camouflage? Do you take us for imbeciles? Orcs are barbaric and entirely single-minded. Army dogma, which has served us well for 10,000 years, teaches us this. Greenskins come in a great horde. They do not slink and sneak in the shade. Guards, take this prisoner to the holding cells to await execution for cowardice and incompetence. Yeah,
awesome.
The Imperium is so stupid. They really are. They're so self-centered and dumb. They walk around like horses that are drawing carriages with blinders on.
So it's like they say, the greatest trick that Kartsik has played on the Imperium of mankind is to convince them that he doesn't exist at all.
Pretty much.
Yep.
It's true, yeah. I just love commandos. I think that they're really cool. I think they really add a lot to the orc fluff. It opens the door for more cunning, morky behavior on the part of your orc characters.
Yeah.
You don't have to be forced into this never-ending cavalcade of dumb behavior. You can actually come up with creative things.
And I think that's sort of telling of the general direction of 40k or age orcs that has sort of steered back from the 3rd to 4th or 5th edition, hordish, brutal seriousness, back to their more humoristic roots. You see more of a comeback of those elements of orkitude that we enjoy so much.
Yeah, I think orcs, it's the whimsy that catches people. Yes, they're brutal. I like to when I describe it, I describe it as brutal whimsy, and that's really what orcs are. My one of the game store owners, he wants to build a commando army, and he wants to paint all the orcs purple because, let's be honest, would you expect a purple orc army? Nope, you wouldn't expect it, would you?
Nobody would expect it, yeah, right.
Yeah, that's why he had me paint his Stampa purple, because so that he can hide it and infiltrate it because they wouldn't be expecting a purple Stampa.
Exactly. Now, I think that's also pretty much what sets apart, like the Warhammer Fantasy and 40k orcs from all the rest of the orcs in any kind of fantasy universe anywhere else. Like the humor. I think that's one of the greatest things GW did with with that setting that is pretty much a mishmash of a lot of inspiration from classical like Tolkien-esque fantasy, that they just took like orcs and made them into their own by adding that kind of brutal whimsy, like you called it, I think.
Yeah, just as you say, that the Tolkien orcs, they're big, they're brutal, but they're kind of intelligent and
they're cunning and dark and malevolent.
They know what they're after. Just watch The Hobbit, for example. That's a great example, if you ask me. But like I said, with Games Workshop, they're about being hilarious.
Yeah,
there's so much fun stuff there that for me it was sort of a hit miss kind of thing, because I love the orcs for them being just so silly, but at the same time, I would never have them as my army because it's just not my thing. But one of my friends, he just jumped at the whole thing because he loves the hilarity.
Yeah, and
definitely.
It's just very unique, It's a very good. I mean, a lot of like Rogue Trader, like first edition of 40k, was very, self-referentially funny, and orcs are one of the only remainders of the fact that all of this 40k grimdark, everything goes to hell nonsense at some point was basically a parody. But now only the orcs remain, and it's just, in a way, a great thing, because it harks very far back in the roots of 40k, and it's just something that stayed true to the roots in that regard.
And you're hitting upon something that it doesn't keep me up at night, but I am concerned about it, is the new codex, and I really hope that it maintains the brutal whimsy of the army. That's the only, I don't care about the rules. I mean, I do care about the rules, but the only thing I truly, truly care about is maintaining that theme. And if they go away from it, if they try to keep it make it too serious, I'm going to be turned off by it. Not that I can't create my own stories, and tell my stories how I want to, but I will be very disappointed.
I really doubt that Games Workshop would change orcs drastically into more of a grimdark kind of thing, simply because I'm pretty sure that most orc players actually like orcs because of that whole brutal whimsy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, one big part of it is definitely that it doesn't make them less of a threat. It just makes them much more sympathetic, just more relatable. You can say relatable, I think.
Yeah, they're pretty relatable. Anyways, I think that's enough for me. So, Snorre, you've come up with some fun rules too. Do you want to tell us first about your the faction that you're dealing with?
Yeah, orcs was Adam's thing because, well, orcs is Adam's thing. And what have I been doing for the last several months? I've been playing Chaos. So, Chaos Cultist Infiltrators, that's more my thing. So I've actually not made any kind of model or a stat line or anything. My concept is a little bit different.
Which is very refreshing, by the way.
Yeah, I thought it was a fun idea because it was not what I was imagining when I started pondering this idea. Well, let's just start from the beginning, though. What is a Chaos Cult? And, well, that's pretty much anything you can think of within the Imperium, especially. But you do also have Chaos Cults outside. But, cultists are basically anyone who comes together to worship some kind of god or multiple gods without being like Chaos Space Marines. They can be just like regular citizens who have either had a moment of clarity about this or think that they know what they should do to please this evil god from that other place that they don't really have a concept of. Cults can be found in just about every layer of the Imperium when it comes to everything from the top to the bottom of the food chain. At the top of the food chain, you have the aristocracy. And within the aristocracy, you can find Slanesh cults, as in, there's so much vanity, greed, and that kind of thing. Probably sex, drugs, and rock and roll kind of cults too. And at the same time, Tzeentch will also find a place there because there's so much political scheming going on.
Yeah, we saw that in Death of Antagonists for sure in the opening scenes of that book.
Another speciality of Tzeentch in regards to cults is that I think there's a lot of cults out there where like the rank and file member, like non-leadership, doesn't even know that they're in a cult worshipping the chaos gods. Like, they think they have just joined some benevolent group, like a non-governmental organization or something like that, and in the end it's a cult, serving the goals of Tzeentch, like top-level cultists on that planet, or even the Alpha Legion.
Yeah, and while we're on the aristocracy, you can probably find a certain level of corn cults in the aristocracy, not directly worshipping corn as in going around beating the heck out of people, but the aristocracy, you can find officers up there leading or owning big fleets. These big fleets can start wars or fight wars, which is what corn loves. So while not directly worshipping corn, they are doing corn's bidding, maybe not even knowing it.
The first rule of Fight Club is you don't talk about Fight Club.
When we're talking about corn now, if you go down the food chain a little bit, you can think of hive gangs, as in Necromunda kind of thing. That's probably also corn cults in there.
Yeah, I didn't think of that. I've always wondered how corn cults start. That's very interesting. It does seem like counter corn or anti-corn to have chaos cults, but the way you describe it, it makes a lot more sense now.
Yeah,
exactly.
Hive gangs are perfect for corn because they're brutal, they will kill, they will dominate, and basically just do their worst to stay in power.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think the usual picture you paint of a corn worshipper, like a mindless, like a mindless killing
Berserker?
beast. Berserker. Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much. That was the word I was looking for. That's like the last step on a long journey, and it can't start with, troopers of any army, Imperial Guard in particular, that suffer PTSD or suffer any kind of other psychological consequences of battle, and just develop a taste for killing, especially in close combat. And originally this might not even be too worrying to officials or officers or whatever, seeing that somebody gets used to war and develops a taste for slaughter and so on. It's just one of the ways to cope with battle for a soldier that does not take them out of action, but rather the opposite. So I think there's definitely fertile ground for that kind of concept in everywhere in the Imperium, because brutality is everywhere.
Yeah, and you're actually touching on something very important here. A chaos cult, as soon as anyone knows about it, as Adam said, if you it's like the first rule of Fight Club is that you don't talk about Fight Club. Cults only survive because of their secrecy. So if you do anything that starts to get people noticing you, then that probably means the Inquisition is going to take you down within the next couple of minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
So let's just move even further down the food chain, and you go into the bottom level of any hive city. There's so much filth and, really bad conditions. Unregistered psychers can be found down here. Mutants sprouting extra limbs and everything. That would be typical Tzeentch-like. And you will also have filthy conditions that cause disease, and then you have Nurgle. So,
And also, prostitutes and underground artists going to extremes and stuff for Slanesh.
yeah. So, like we've now pretty much covered, every single level of Imperial society is susceptible to cults. And all kinds of weird behavior can fit into a cult. So, if you want to have a story about something cult-related, there's almost no limit to the kind of inspiration you can find.
Oh man, yeah. Like as far as cult activity, I don't think there's a single army in 40K that can't be utilized to tell cult stories.
And that's pretty much what I've done. Because the way I thought of this was, we're supposed to do covert operations, but what is the best way for a cultist to infiltrate something? Just having a cultist squad infiltrating on the board, that's boring. I actually thought that let's have the cultists infiltrate one of your opponent's units.
Yeah, and if you think about it, or rather, if you've read a lot of Black Library, this is like, there's no real way to exclude this possibility, even for, like, Space Marines. I mean, there's stories where a single Space Marine, or rather, there's stories of particular Space Marines falling to chaos in the midst of battle, so that's not unheard of.
Yeah, and it's let's be honest, this seems like such an obvious addition to the game that it's almost crazy that we haven't had this before, or that I know of.
Yeah, beats me. Why no one, or why the official mothership hasn't actually picked up on this.
Yeah, well, I mean, not that I thought of it. I'm not saying it's not a genius idea. I'm saying that it seems so natural to include something like this that it's a surprise that it hasn't been created in the actual rulebooks.
Or maybe we just don't know.
Oh, you're right. It could be.
Could be
I'm going to check
meta.
under the bases of all my Legion of the Damned models now.
Yeah, definitely. You check for markers there.
All right, go ahead, Snort.
Yeah, go ahead.
So let's just go through how the infiltration works. Cultist Infiltrators are a tool of the forces of chaos. Any army containing either Chaos Space Marines or Chaos Demons may choose one infiltrator, which does not take up a force organization choice, but does have a points cost. An infiltrator is quote-unquote deployed at the same time as infiltrators during setup. Cultists cannot infiltrate any Chaos Demon army or a Chaos Space Marine army with the same mark of Chaos as their own. That's simply because, the way I see it, having Nurgle cultists infiltrate a Nurgle-based army, that's kind of stupid.
Yeah, no, that wouldn't make any sense. That rule makes complete sense to me.
Yeah, and at the same time, if you have a cultist, or say a Slanesh cultist, trying to infiltrate a Khorne demon army, those demons, they know... I'm pretty sure they could smell the guy from a mile away, so he would be killed before he was even able to get close to them. So you nominate one model in one of your opponent's infantry troops choices, and you place a piece of sticky tack or green stuff, a piece of colored tape or something under the base while your opponent's back is turned or he's somewhere else. The squad is now affected by the appropriate trait we'll be discussing shortly. Casualties in this squad should be toppled instead of being removed straight away to see if they are the cultists. Once the cultist dies, all effects they brought with them stop affecting the rest of the squad, and that happens instantly.
Yeah, this is a really cool method. Like, I can see this being so much fun. I'm not going to hold you up anymore, but I just needed to say that. I think that this is so cool. Like, one of your enemy's unit, one of your opponent's units is affected by this cultist, and they don't know which model it is. So cool.
But they can speculate, and they can put the models in front.
Yeah, like, oh, do I move the back guy in the front so he dies, or do I put the almost in the back? Like, which one would he have chosen?
So,
did he choose the guy in the front? Or who's the mole?
Or did he choose the guy with the plasma rifle? Or would he like me to think that he chose the guy with the plasma rifle, obviously, so that I kill him, but it's not at all?
Does he know that I know? Is he a fatalist? Does he believe that man is inherently flawed? All right, go on. Sorry.
Okay, yeah, Adam, before you go all the way into the Ursula hole, okay, your brain is going to cave in and form a warp portal. Yeah, let's continue. The cultists of the four gods have different abilities. So let's start off with the Khorne. For 80 points, the worshippers of Khorne lust for bloodshed. Few things please their god more than mayhem and destruction. The cultists will run headlong into the enemy's ranks, and the rest of the squad will feel that they have no other choice but to follow and help protect their comrade.
Yeah, that reminds me from some war movie scenes. It's like I don't know if you've seen like Gods and Generals, the Civil War movie, but there's a particular battle scenes where where the Confederate army in that battle have like a unit or a regiment of recruits, or rather cadets, like military academy cadets in their battle line, and those are just totally, like, one of them is totally overeager and just charges before the order is given, and the other cadets follow him, and then the rest of the line follows because they just want to see those kids die alone. It's sort of like that.
Yeah, no, it's cool, and I just want to point out to the listeners, there are rules for compulsory movement in the book. You just have to look for it.
Yeah, you have them in one of the effects for the Hellbrute. If he gets shot and gets one of the results, then he actually has to try to charge something.
Right. And Mad Doc has compulsory movement as well. You basically move the whole unit as a group in a direct line in that same formation. It's interesting, but neither here nor there.
Yeah. So the unit nominated to have been infiltrated by Khorne cultists must seek out close combat at all costs. At the beginning of the shooting phase, check range from the infiltrated unit to the nearest enemy infantry unit, either in a transport or not, or a monstrous creature, ignoring any units that are zooming and soaring. This is the Khorne infiltrated unit's target. If they are not within 12 inches of the target when the shooting phase begins, they must run towards it. If they are still outside of 12 inches, then the infiltrated unit acts as if it's been affected by brainleaf fronds, which is in the big rulebook, 6th edition, page 102, under Mysterious Forests.
Nice touch.
Yeah, because that basically means that there's a chance of a D3 close combat attacks, and, well, that's the whole thing. Because members, if they can't fight the enemy, then they will start fighting amongst themselves.
Yeah, I love how you just decided to adapt an existing but rather obscure rule here instead of creating a new one. That's good design.
It was actually Adam who used the brainleaf frond reference, because I was thinking of the orcs and goblins from fantasy.
Oh,
but
yeah.
good on you, Snorre, for remembering to remind the listeners that that's the 6th edition rule book that they'll find that rule in. If that changes, we'll switch the actual page reference for the new book when it comes out.
Yeah. But that will, of course, be in the supplement, not on this episode.
Yeah, no, yeah. What you're hearing now, I won't go back in time and change it.
Exactly, because we can't. If they are within 12 inches of their target unit at the start of the assault phase, then they must charge the target as if they have fleet. But if they ran in the shooting phase, they are tired, so they cannot charge.
Obviously, yeah.
Yeah, but also, since they are close to the enemy, they will not go and start fighting among themselves because they can smell bloodshed coming. So that's Khorne for you.
The Khorne, yeah, I really like this. That's cool. It's like the old school Rage, except they have to go after their own unit. And this one's likely to stick around and actually at least get into close combat with something.
Yeah, I really would like to live through this at some point. Like, what is my 10-man unit of sniper scouts doing there?
Yeah.
You're doing it wrong.
I think the important thing to remember, though, is at least this stuff is going to be, at least this is something that'll be on your army list, so it won't be a total surprise to your opponent, unless you're a GM that's adding this stuff to a scenario.
Yeah, and here's also one thing that Camille pointed out when we were writing this stuff, is that he was afraid that, what do you do if you give this to Devastators or some heavy weapons, heavy kind of unit? And that's when I point out this can only affect troops, simply because it would be kind of stupid if you took the most shooty, elite or heavy support slot and then affecting it with this. That would be just overpowered.
What is my Riptide doing?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And we made sure to specify infantry troops as well, so it's not going to be like your troops, your Land Raider, which is now a troops choice for some reason.
Yeah, I think Tau Fire Warriors are like the most Khorne cultists in the whole universe. Sorry.
Yeah, that's going to be a bleep.
I know, but still, the thought is hilarious that some kind of Tau Fire Warrior forced Khorne.
Yeah, that is messed up. Wow, how do you manage that? Just sometimes Khorne, maybe he's in disguise. Maybe he's one of Kurzig's commandos that has been taken over by Khorne that has infiltrated the Tau.
Yeah, I mean, there's at some point this will require creativity to integrate into your actual games and their lore, because Tau are pretty, a very unlikely target for cultist activity. But on the other hand, maybe it's some kind of psychosis or whatever. And on the other hand, you might have Tyranids, but then again, warp energies, maybe mutation, irrational behavior, and so on.
And after all, they're not immune to psychic powers.
Yeah, exactly. So. They're fleshy bodily, mortal creatures too. So there you have it.
All right, what's the next one, Snorri?
Next up is Slaanesh, and this is also at 80 points. A cultist of Slaanesh revels in the emotion and sensations around them, and where there's a lack of strong emotions, they will make their own. Whispers of dissent, gloom, and doom, it all helps to undermine unit morale. What this means is that a unit that has been infiltrated by a Slaaneshi cultist reduced their leadership by 1, and they're affected by fear. That's in the big rulebook, page 35. And they automatically fail their check at the beginning of every player turn. So it means they basically have no capacity for close combat because they're just terrified.
Yeah, this is really cool. That's a cool ability. You could also kind of say, instead of it being fear, they're just so racked with pleasure that they're completely distracted from the task at hand.
Maybe that cultist guy just, drugged up his whole unit.
I think the drug one would be cool because the cultists would probably just revel in the fact that they're all just high as a kite.
Yeah, he probably fed everyone. Like, he's like, "Oh, hey guys, I got lunch. Oh, good, everybody eat your lunch. Enjoy that, suckers."
They've been sniffing orc spores.
That's right. You know what happens when you start sniffing orc spores and dealing with Slaanesh? You get social diseases, and you know who brings those? Nurgle.
There's this strange thing with Nurgle. Everything related to Nurgle is always more expensive. And
well, that's because it's good.
Exactly, and I think this one is really good. The Nurgle cultist costs you 135 points. Now, when you've seen enough of your friends die in combat, fought in enough meaningless conflicts on nameless planets few even know exist, despair might set in. You'll wish for an end to all your pains, real or imagined. Papa Nurgle will gladly take you into his fold and take all your pains away, for the teensy-weensy price of eternal service in his name.
If the Enslavers don't get you first.
Yeah.
Sorry.
But Papa Nurgle isn't discriminatory. He takes everyone. Enslavers only like the Psychers.
That's true. Papa Nurgle does not, unlike your Enslavers, Camille, Papa Nurgle does not discriminate.
That's right, yeah. I can agree to this. He's a real good guy. In a terrible way.
Yeah. So, while the cultist is alive, at the beginning of each turn, every uninfected model in the infiltrated unit must take a toughness test. Each model that fails the toughness test is marked with a token. They have been affected with the contagion. When every model in the unit has been affected with the contagion, the unit is removed from play. That in itself is actually quite cool, that suddenly your whole unit just falls over and dies from all kinds of ugly diseases. If the cultist is killed before this takes place, you place a large blast over the model and resolve it as a Strength X AP2 Poison 4+, which does not scatter because the cultist just explodes in a rain of contagious goo.
Ah, yummy.
Loving it. I love this. I love this ability.
Yeah, I actually, when I was thinking of this, I was thinking a bit like of the scene from RoboCop after the guy gets the whole chemical thing going over. He just like disintegrates. That's kind of what I'm seeing with this stuff. Only it's explosively.
I'm currently thinking of washed up whales.
This is another one where I think people might be like, "Oh, my expensive unit, no!" And again, if you're running a Seer Council with like Toughness 3, and you're relying on your 2+ save with 2+ reroll to win you the game, you deserve to have Papa Nurgle infect your army.
Well, they're not the troop squad, are they? So there's that again.
Aren't they?
I don't think so.
Maybe not. They're an HQ. Yeah,
definitely.
I guess I'm dumb. But whatever.
You
Whatever
just
the
have
case,
to.
if you're relying on your expensive troops choice, then you deserve to be infected.
Yep. I mean, it's 135 points. I think it's fairly priced because, most armies' troop choices will not even amount to 135 points. So, that's that.
Right.
Finally, we come to Siege. This cultist is the cheapest one at 70 points. But I think he might actually be undercosted for what he does because depending a little bit on how Soul Blaze works for you, it can be a hell of a thing. Strange happenings surround the mutant. Whether they are aware of their psychic potential or not doesn't matter. Wherever they go, bad things happen. A unit that has been infiltrated by its Siege cultist gain 1 Soul Blaze token at the beginning of the movement phase of the controlling players every turn. That is, the player who owns the unit that has been infiltrated. There is no limit to how many tokens they can have at one time, which contradicts the Soul Blaze rule itself. So this is a bit of an important point. Resolve each Soul Blaze token in turn. The cultist must always be allocated a hit for every Soul Blaze that goes off. So, if you have 2 Soul Blaze tokens to go off in one round, then the cultist has to take 2 hits from these Soul Blaze tokens. And the other ones you can distribute as you want. Now, if the cultist dies from an unsaved wound caused by Soul Blaze, the Chaos entity which had enthralled the cultists uses their dying screams as a guide to enter Materium. Place a Chaos spawn where the cultist died. The squad is now engaged in close combat with the spawn and will fight an ongoing combat in the next assault phase.
Yeah. And then roll D100, and on a natural 100, it's not a Chaos spawn but Fate Weaver.
How great would that be? That would be awesome.
I mean, at this point, you might as well, but hey.
You know what? Quick thing. I really think that Soul Blaze should stack anyways. I think that I was talking to Kieran about this at the tournament, and I agree with him. I think it would be Soul Blaze would be so much better if you could stack it.
And Zine's unit can totally use it, to be honest.
Definitely.
Yeah. I've had... I think I was playing a game once and rolled on the Warlords table and got Soul Blaze. And I think I got 1 or 2 Soul Blaze on a unit that actually hit or just like exploded. But the effect wasn't really all that great because it's only strength 4, AP 5, and I was playing Space Marines.
Yeah.
But against Imperial Guard, this is probably going to be quite devastating.
Yeah. No, it's cool.
I definitely think that's sort of underestimated.
Yeah, and the whole reason for going for Soul Blaze is simply because I'm seeing here you have someone with potential psychic ability, and they can't really control it, so people just burst into flames around them.
Yeah, that's fair.
Cool.
Definitely.
I'm loving this ability. I think it's fun.
Yeah.
All of them are fun.
All of them are,
I would really like to see how people react to the whole the Soul Blaze tokens stacking kind of thing, because I'm not sure if it's too powerful or if it's kind of lousy. Because for me, in my experience, Soul Blaze hasn't really been great, but I haven't been playing Imperial Guard.
I think the Cultist is going to die pretty quickly. I think the most you're going to get are like two stacked at one time, and Soul Blaze is so mediocre to begin with that I think that for 70 points, this is pretty fairly
very
priced.
fair. Yeah. You know what I would like to see? It's something like a whole army of enslavers appearing on a tabletop, and the boss enslaver is like, haha, nobody expects the enslavers. And on his right flank, one of his enslaver units suddenly starts to charge and, like, attack the enemy in close combat instead of doing enslaving. And, like, pretty much broadcast blood for the blood god on their mind channel. And he's all like, do you know what that's about? And turns around to his two coven mates, and they're like orcs carrying around real cheap paper mache and slaver costumes. Because, okay, this episode is titled Invisible Threats, and come on, we've had two very grim dark options for your games of 40k, and one bit of Adam's orky silliness, but to be honest, all of this stuff is sort of hilarious.
Yeah, and that's when the one Calidus assassin that's drank the potion that lets them like turn into something else.
Yeah, that metamorphic
takes one
stuff.
look at the situation, just puts their like mind frel gun down and just walks away.
Yeah, and
just throws up their hand. You know what? No, I'm leaving.
And in orbit, like a cloaked Alpha Legion cruiser, like on the bridge, the commanders all like, everything's going as planned.
Just as I had planned it.
And since we're speaking of assassins, I just checked. There are rules for 4 different assassins in the Grey Knights Codex.
Nice.
Okay, but nobody's using the other ones. Gotcha.
Yeah, but like I was saying, man, I think that would be really cool to just say these assassins are a codex, because pretty much that's what GW's been doing anyways.
And
so.
yeah, they were at some point at a point in second edition.
Yeah,
and
I'm not
in the
saying
meantime,
that. I'm not saying that to be flippant. I'm just saying that's what they've been doing. I mean, it would totally make sense to be able to just throw an assassin in your army if you're an Imperial player.
Yeah, I mean, Adam, you would have like felt totally at home in second edition, because there were instances of a single Everser assassin like slaughtering all of an enemy army like in one turn of hopping between units. Because resolving close combat gave the winner the opportunity to charge another unit, and he could just zoom around the board like crazy and just slaughter everyone.
That's funny.
I mean, that's definitely nothing of a balanced game, but on the other hand, just narrative as hell.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, guys, I don't know. I think I've enjoyed talking about these crazy invisible threats to the Imperium and other factions in the 41st Millennium.
Yeah. I think we've beaten this horse pretty much to death.
I think so too.
Stay tuned and we'll close out the show.
This has been an episode of Masters of the Forge. Let's see if we can get you to like our Facebook page. That is Masters of the Forge. Just type that in on Facebook. We have our blog at mastersoftheforge.com.
Great job, by the way, Camille. Looking pretty good. I just did some touch-ups, but the initial design was really nice. Great work on that.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much.
It's looking like we're a professional operation. Let's hope no one finds out the truth.
Yeah.
Find us on iTunes, give us likes, and give us reviews. Hopefully not 2-star ones that accuse us of being hipsters.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
You can give us 5-star reviews that accuse us of being hipsters.
Yeah, we're fine with that.
All right, everybody. Thank you for listening. And until next time, play the game how you want to.
This podcast is protected by the Creative Commons Attribution, No Derivatives, Non-Commercial International License. More information about this license and contact information if you have any requests can be found at our blog, mastersoftheforge.com. The music used in this podcast was made by Parad of the duo Sublevel 3. The track is used with his permission. This has been an episode of Deep Strike.
No, it was not.
Hold on. Wait, let me look down. Yeah, those are definitely moobs, not boobs, gentlemen. They're moobs.
You're not from Canada either.
Alright, go ahead, Snorri.
Give us reviews, hopefully not 2-star ones that accuse us of being hipsters.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
You can give us 5-star reviews that accuse us of being hipsters. Actually, that sounds like a really great contest to have people give us good reviews, but like the actual text of the review is horribly negative, and the worst one gets a prize.
Let's not encourage people to hate us.
Deep Strike.
What have I been doing for the last several months? I've been playing Chaos. So, Chaos Infiltrator Cults.
I was sort of hoping that you'd say something like, and Enslavers was Kimmel's thing is because he's German.
That was a total missed opportunity, Snorri.
Yeah,
we're going to have to rethink your contract.
I was trying to avoid the whole Second World War hate thing.
I think at this point
that's nice of you, Snorri. You're a good person.
Yeah, well, as I said, Chaos Cultist Infiltrators, that's more my thing. That's going to be interesting because I ordered the 7th edition stuff and it hasn't arrived yet because
Whoa. You ordered the 7th edition stuff. All right. Let's take this. This is a variable that you're omitting the details of. But by 7th edition stuff, what do you mean, Snorri?
It's the rule book, the picture book, and the fluff book, plus some cards and some order cards.
Just admit that you bought the Monitorum edition.
With numbers on them. Yeah, exactly. I was trying not to sound like a total jerk here.
But instead,
you enumerated everything that comes in the box.
I was trying to delay the whole box thing so you can just talk in my mouth and just blab about.
That's In a way, that sounds even more jerkish.
Wait, you want me
I'm
to stick
sorry.
my box in your mouth? What? That's getting edited out.
Yeah.
As well as the thing where you said that you've plugged some holes over there in London.
Snorri brought his hand drill to London.
Okay.
It's really cool, and I've heard a lot of good press about them. So,
All right, that sounds like everything you need to do your own stop-motion Japanese porn.
poor Snorri.
Oh, come on, that's literally not safe for work. Everyone knows about that.
Oh God. Okay, you know what? This episode is gonna be 20% show, 80% outtakes. This is quality radio right here, guys.
All right. To get this back on track,